Yes, sir, we will do, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar of TDS and TCS Provisions under Income Tax Act 1961. So, before starting the session, FTCCI recently launched its own app. This is the QR codes we get from Google Play Store and Apple Store as well. You can scan and download and utilize this FTCCI app to the maximum extent. Yeah, Venkat, can you play the FTCCI?
(1917), the year when a dedicated organization, the Deccan Chamber of Commerce, was formed to encourage trade and commerce activities. The historical journey of the organization has witnessed great transformation as per the changing needs of the industry and businesses. The Federation of Telangana Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FTCCI, a legacy of excellence, voice of the industry, representing interests of over 25,000 businesses of all sizes, sectors and regions, is empowering industry and trade of Telangana state. A world leader in pharma, a global hub for vaccine, home to all major MNCs, leader in IT exports, and emerging first stop of India. FTCCI advocates a pro-business environment, caters to the needs of MSMEs, budding entrepreneurs, and traders through its advisory services in taxation, market information, industry-related issues, B2B connection. The Chamber has its nominees in the state-level advisory committees to help drive business productivity. FTCCI aids in providing certificate of origin for exporters, issues visa recommendation for business travels. The Federation imparts job skills through its dedicated skills center. It has adopted 14 government ITIs to improve the employability of students. With a uniquely global perspective, the FTCCI events reach a highly engaged audience, policymakers and stakeholders aiming towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. Come and be a part of this dynamic and proactive organization. Together, let's realize the vision for a progressive future.
Now I request Sri Meela Jaydev, President of FTCC, to give his comments.
I thank you very much for organizing nice online webinar on TDS and TCS of Provisions of Income Tax Act. ఇక్కడికి వచ్చిన ప్రతి ఒక్కళ్ళకి మా FTCI తరఫున హృదయపూర్వక నమస్కారాలండి. మీరు పర్టికులర్గా మాకు ఈరోజు అరేంజ్ చేసిన హరిగోవింద్ ప్రసాద్ గారు, సెషన్ చైర్మన్, co-chair డైరెక్ట్ ట్యాక్సెస్ కమిటీ అండ్ స్పెషల్ స్పీకర్ రితీష్ మెట్టల్ చార్టెడ్ అకౌంటెంట్, వీరందరికీ మా హృదయపూర్వక నమస్కారాలు అండ్ వీళ్ళందరికీ హృదయపూర్వక స్వాగతం అండి. నా కొలీగ్స్ సురేష్ కుమార్ సింగల్ అండ్ సీనియర్ వైస్ ప్రెసిడెంట్ అండ్ రవి కుమార్ వైస్ ప్రెసిడెంట్ అండ్ సిఏ చార్టెడ్ అకౌంటెంట్ సుధీర్, చైర్ ఆఫ్ డైరెక్ట్ ట్యాక్సెస్ కమిటీ, అండ్ శ్రీ కోటేశ్వరరావు గారు, అడ్వైజర్ టు ది డైరెక్ట్ ట్యాక్స్ కమిటీ FTCCI. ఈరోజు ప్రతి ఒక్కరికి స్పెషల్ థ్యాంక్స్ టు ఈ మీటింగ్ వచ్చినందుకు. TDS డిడక్టెడ్ అండ్ taxes source and TCS taxes collected. ఇవన్నీ ఆదాయానికి మూలం వద్ద వసూలు చేసే, అంటే స్టార్టింగ్లో వసూలు చేసే సాధనాలు గవర్నమెంట్, సెంట్రల్ గవర్నమెంట్ అన్ని ఇన్కమ్ ట్యాక్స్ కంటే బిఫోర్ కడుతుండ్రా కట్టట్లేదా అని కట్టినా కట్టకపోయినా టీసీఎస్, టీడీఎస్ అనేది వసూలు చేస్తుంది. ఇదంతా ఆదాయానికి సంబంధించిన పన్నుల మూలస్థానాన్ని వసూలు చేసే ఉద్దేశంతో టీడీఎస్ అండ్ టీసీఎస్ విధాన్ని ప్రవేశపెట్టింది. సాధారణంగా ఈ ఆదాయాన్ని ఆర్జించే వ్యక్తి ఆదాయ పన్ను చెల్లించాల్సి ఉంటుంది. చెల్లించినా కానీ అట్లాంటి చెల్లింపుల నుంచి ఆదాయ పన్ను ముందుగానే వసూలు చేసుకుంటుంటుంది. టీసీఎస్ కలెక్టెడ్ అమ్మకాలు చేసేటప్పుడు ఒక 50 లక్షల టర్నోవర్ దాటిన వాళ్ళు ఎవరైతే ఉంటుందో వాళ్ళ దగ్గర నుంచి కలెక్ట్ చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది, సెల్లర్ దగ్గర నుంచి. చేసి మేము గవర్నమెంట్కి చెల్లిస్తే మళ్ళీ వాళ్ళు అక్కడి నుంచి తగ్గించుకొని వాళ్ళు పే చేస్తారు. ఇదంతా పన్ను ఎగవేతల అదుపులో ఉంచడానికే ఇదంతా టీడీఎస్, టీసీఎస్ని మెయిన్ ఇవన్నీ స్టార్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు. టీడీఎస్ అండ్ టీసీఎస్ డిడక్ట్ ఎవరు చేస్తారు, ఎప్పుడు చేస్తారు, ఎక్కడ మినహాయిస్తారు, ఇది చాలా మందికి ఇది డౌట్ఫుల్గా ఉంటాయి. కొన్ని ఎప్పుడు చేస్తారు, 3 నెలలకు ఒకసారి చేస్తారని, కొంతమంది 1 నెల రోజులకు చేస్తారని, ఎప్పటికప్పుడు కట్టాలని, ఎప్పుడెప్పుడు చేయాలి. ఈ వెబినార్లో ఎవరికి ఏమైనా ఉంటే దాంట్లో మెసేజ్లో పెడితే వాళ్ళకి క్లియర్గా అర్థమయ్యేటట్టు కూడా చెప్తాము. ఫస్ట్ వాళ్ళు మొత్తం మన క్లుప్తంగా వాళ్ళు వెబినార్ ద్వారా తెలుపుతారు. ఇక్కడ అందరూ ఈరోజు చాలా ఎక్స్పర్ట్ వాళ్ళందరూ మీకు క్లియర్ చేయడానికి ఎఫ్టీసీసీఐ చైర్మన్ గారు తీసుకొని వచ్చారు. హరిగోవింద్ ప్రసాద్ గారికి చాలా హృదయపూర్వక ధన్యవాదాలు. ఇదందరూ ఇది మంచిగా యూజ్ చేసుకొని ఎవరికి ఇబ్బంది కాకుండా మీరందరూ కంపెనీస్కి ఎవరైతే ఇండివిజువల్స్ కానీ ఎవరికి కానీ అవకాశం ఉన్న మన మెంబర్స్ అందరికీ మీరు ఉపయోగించుకుంటే ఇది చాలా ఎంతో ఉపయోగమవుతుంది. I once again thank you for all to join this webinar, sir.
Thank you, sir. I now request C.A. Sudhir V.S., Chair of Direct Taxes Committee, to give his introductory remarks.
Thank you, sir, President Garu, for joining for this webinar and giving your welcome address. So let me give a small context behind this webinar. So income tax is a pretty old law, and a lot of provision has been settled. But nevertheless, the major revenue, the government wants to have it early, and thereby there is a provision of this TDS and TCS where this started with having more of a control mechanism, but has also been now looked at as a major collection of revenue on a month-on-month basis, because majority of the income tax has been collected on a monthly basis itself, rather than waiting for at least for a quarter for an advance tax. So this is becoming growing, and the TDS TCS started very small for few services. Now it has been gone to almost for every services there is going to be either a TDS, or every sale there is going to be a TCS which has been made. So it's also very important that we need to look at the non-compliances which will be coming out from the TDS. One of the things which we also have to be aware and be prepared for is that soon there is going to be a real-time data sharing between the income tax and the GST department. So as of now also there is a data sharing which is happening on a 2 independent servers on a periodical basis. But the government is having a plan to have a common server where there is a real-time data which has been shared. So that means there is a person who has actually given you an invoice. Say I'm a chartered accountant. I give you an invoice of professional service to you. You are supposed to deduct the TDS either on payment or accounting in your books of accounts, whichever is earlier. So there may be a practice of few industry that they account my invoice only when they pay me after 2 or 3 months, as the case may be. And the TDS also would have been remitted then. But now the real-time data sharing, it shows that because I have uploaded my GSTR1 and I have given you details, so that invoice is already there as a part of your 2B. And that gets compared with your TDS returns, which has been there, which you are actually is filing. And a comparison of these two would be made. And if there is a short TDS, the notices gets generated in that month only for not doing it. So this sort of technology usage is being looked at from a TDS point of view. And this is what is going to happen either in this financial year or the upcoming financial year. But things are not very far. It's round the clock. So it's going to happen as quickly as possible. So now it's time for each of us in the industry to look at the systems what we are having for doing the compliance of TDS and TCS. So that's the reason we in the committee we deliberated that there is a requirement for us to have an exclusive session to solve all the doubts and also give you a clarity on what exactly this is and how serious the non-deduction of TDS can happen. So I was told that there is also a prosecution for not doing the TDS or remittance. So it is not a very easy thing for us of a non-compliance. It's a serious non-compliance which we are doing. And a lot of things are going unnoticed, but because of this GST and income tax data sharing, this becomes very prominent. So that's the reason I've requested Mr. Ritesh Mittal, chartered accountant, who was very competent in doing this sort of a sessions across various parts of the country, has handled this sort of a sessions in our chartered accountant branch and various other forums. So I also requested my co-chairman of the committee, Arikishan, to chair this session and also give his inputs on what are the things which we need to look at. So I request each one of you to take the best advantage of this session, make it as interactive as possible, ask all questions, use the chat box, put your questions there. We will try and answer. I'm sure both the speakers here, speaker and the chairman, will try and answer all the questions which has been there. But if time doesn't permit, we will ensure that we will replay those questions by an email. So thank you all. That's all from my side for now. Over to the session chairman and the speaker.
Thank you, sir. Before that, I request to CA Aravinda Garikapati, member of Direct Access Committee, to introduce session chairman and speaker.
Thank you, FTCCI, for conducting the wonderful session. And thank you, everyone, for attending this session and taking out time from our busy schedules regarding today's webinar on TDS and TCS provisions under the Income Tax Act. As the chairman, Sudhir has told clearly that the importance of the data between the sharing between the GST department and the Income Tax department plays a vital role when we are providing all the information at one place. And I have the opportunity and honor to introduce today's session chairman and the speaker of the session. Let me introduce Mr. Hari Govind ji, who is the chairman of the session. He is a chartered accountant with over 30 years of experience. He is also the co-chair of the Direct Tax Committee and is also the co-chair of the FTCCI Future Technologies and Startup Committee, and is a life member of the FTCCI, Indian Red Cross Society, Tax Bar Association, and is also served as under various capacities under the FAPC, and is a very social activist who is as a member and as a chairman of so many committees and as a life trustees and treasurers of so many organizations. And Mr. Ritesh Mittal ji is also chartered accountant, who is our today's esteemed speaker, who qualified his chartered accountancy course in 2003 and is a qualified insolvency professional, is a qualified systems auditor and also a law graduate. His expertise lies in company law, direct tax law, and the indirect tax. He is also the managing committee member of the FTCCI. He is also the governing council member of the Telangana and Andhra Pradesh Tax Bar Association and for the president for 21-22, and is a co-opted member of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of ICSA for 22-23. He is a past regional council member of SIRC of ICAI 2016-19, and is a past managing committee member of the Hyderabad branch of SIRC from 2013 and 2016. Over to you.
Thank you, madam. I now request session chairman and session speaker to take over.
So, rather good afternoon, Hari Govind Prasad from FTCCI. I thank the president, a dynamic president who has taken very several drastic steps in the history of FAPC. Day before we had first of its kind after a long time, calling all the major political parties and talking about economic, industry and reforms they are going to take up. That was, I think, that one of the most reward aspect which I have noticed in his, apart from several of his initiatives, one of its kind, which FAPC has taken as a non-political, these things in the interest of the industry. So also our senior vice president Suresh Singhalji and Ravi being guiding us and informing us from time to time what is of the interest of the industry and the concerns which has to be taken up with the government and at the proper forum and proper time. Today we have a eminent speaker along with us, Mr. Ritesh Mittal, as introduced by Aravinda Verikopati, because our chairman, Sri Sudhir, also is a very eminent speaker, prolific writer and paper presenter on GST on several forums, and I'm privileged to be a co-chair with him on direct access front. We have our secretary for this committee, Mr. Lakshmi Venkat, also, who has been very active for taking up all these issues. Now, coming to today's important topic, TDS TCS provisions under income tax. Though in the GST also now these provisions have come. What is TDS? Why it is important, and why it is relevant to know the nuances and intricacies of this tax deduction and collection aspect, because it is the government money which is in the form of taxes. Though the government is supposed to collect it or see that the SSC is paid properly by way of various methods, either by way of self-assessment and advance tax, etc. There used to be estimated advance tax also. But the government felt that there are many of the taxes are not getting recovered and in time. So they have thought of that as you earn, as you get the money, as you make the payment or earning was the concept for deduction and remittance. This obligation of collection, deduction, and remittance has been costed on the persons who is making the payment or making a credit. That means because I'm utilizing some services or making some payments, I am obligated to make the deduction and remit to the government in time. That is generally after the month end 7th, and in the annual it is a 1 month time. And how to get the credit to the respective person, and what are the methods and modes of payment, what are their compliances. If they do not comply within the time, what happens? It is the government treasury money. So you are holding the government money. If you do not discharge your duty, what are the consequences? Our expert will delve and detail that what are the total process and procedures involved into it. But one thing we have to notice, as our president has told, that Adam, that at the time of earning only, but today if you see all sort of payments, whether it is expenditure, when the expenditure was there, now today it has moved to purchases. Now my government is so serious about covering all aspects, leaving no stone unturned to recover and collect, which has been casted upon you. Even on the sales, even on the aspects like liquor, alcohol, tamarind, forest produce, where the government cannot cash out of the SSCs or the things, contractors, etc. They are tested on as a tax collection aspect on the supplier or the seller or the government agencies for that aspect. So TDS is in respect of not only on expenses, but it has been introduced on purchases. Not only it has been limited now under section 194 Q2 purchases, it has given the arm to the sellers also under 206, 1H, etc., C1H, etc., that both are going hand in hand, but with certain riders, etc. So government is leaving no, even if now you deposit and withdraw the money, if EPF is also withdrawn, if remittances are made, if compensation is given, so what not, any transfer, virtual digital assets, if you see 192, 192A, 193, 194, even 194 has several NRIs or the persons who are not having any sort of a linkage, even withdrawal or transfer or virtual digital assets, 194, M, O, P, Q, R, S, even benefits or perquisites are also covered, which may be not in cash also, but kind is also covered. So all these aspects of nuances will be dealt by none other than All India expert Ritesh Mittal. So there are several amendments which have come, which are applicable from last 1st April 2023, and this year also in respect of LRS and several other aspects. And at the same time, several consequences, penalties by way of interest and late fees and other disallowances have also come into part. So various rates structures are also given, so which will be dealt upon by my co-colleague Ritesh Mittal, a good friend of mine. So over to Ritesh Mittal for further, because I don't want to stand in between the knowledge and the seekers. Over to Ritesh Mittal. I'm in that chat with the committee.
Friends, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So, first of all, I thank the Federation of Telangana Chamber of Commerce and Industry for inviting me here on this TDS and TCS topic. And my warm regards to the President of the Federation, Meera Jaydev, and to the Chairman, V.S. Sudhir, and the Session Chairman, Harigovind Prasad, and my friends, Sambamurthy, Hanmandlu, Vishal Jain, and co-chair Madam Arvinda. So thank you everyone for giving this opportunity. And today's topic is TDS and TCS. Okay. The voice is clear. I hope the voice is clear, or should I have to? There's a need to
No,
increase.
excellent voice yours.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So, right, sir. So, what is the objective of this session today? See, point number one, with regard to the TDS and TCS in income tax, we have to understand the concept of TDS, TCS when it is applicable. Then, once we have to know the sections and applicability, once that is done, we should know how the challan has to be paid. Then, once the challan has to be paid, then how do we file the TDS and TCS returns? And once the TDS returns are filed, then how do we issue the TDS certificate so that the deductee in his 26 years the amounts are reflected. Then does the job ends there? No. Sometimes what happens is on uploading the TDS returns there will be many defaults will be there. So those defaults again has to be rectified by revising the TDS returns. And once the TDS returns is revised, then we have to check that there is no dues there. So this is the overall process of the TDS returns, and finally, I'll just share my PPT also. Screen share.
Sir, it's visible, sir.
Screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So what is the meaning of TDS? See, TDS, what happens is whenever certain payments are made, the entire amount is not paid to the deductor. By not paid by the deductor, he will hold certain amount and pay the balance amount to the deductee. For example, if rent has to be paid by the tenant to the owner, he will not pay, suppose every month he has to pay around 50,000 as a rent. He will not pay 50,000. He will hold certain amounts, for example, 10,000, 10% rate, 5,000 he'll hold, and he is going to make the payment of 45,000 to the deductee. So that is the reason we say tax deducted. The amount is deducted. Whereas in the case of TCS, it is tax collected at source. So first thing is, what is the difference between TDS and TCS? TDS and TCS, what is? So in TDS, we say it is tax is deducted, whereas in TCS, it is collected. So how is that it is collected? In one case, it is deducted. So basically what happens is, in the case of TDS, when the amount is being paid, certain amount is deducted. Whereas in the case of TCS, in addition to that amount, some additional amount is charged. Like in this case, suppose when a sale is made, along with the sale, the seller adds GST amount. Similarly, he will also add TCS amount. So whenever the seller is selling some amount to the buyer, he is not even going to, as he adds the GST component, he is also going to add the TCS component. So in the case of TCS, the amount is added. In the case of TDS, the amount is deducted. That is the reason, the name. So tax is same, source is same, in between deducted at source and collected at source is coming there. So why is the concept of TDS and TCS is there? So what happens is, it acts as Sudhir was saying it acts as a regular inflow of revenue to the government. So as we need monthly revenue, government also needs month-on-month revenue. So suppose if there is a salaried employee or if there is an employee or a person who is filing the income tax return at the end of the year and he makes the payment of tax at the end of the year. So government needs income on a month-on-month basis. Okay. So in such cases also, the TDS amount will also be deducted on month-on-month basis. So it acts as a regular inflow of revenue to the government. The second objective, it helps in evading of taxes. Like how what happens? Now, suppose if there is a contractor, okay, and he is providing some services, and the contractee at the time of making the payment to the contractor has deducted TDS. And what has happened is because of deduction of TDS, these amounts are reflected in his 26 AS. Now, how it will be reflected? How much is the amount paid and how much is the TDS deducted? Now, for example, various contractors have deducted the TDS, and now in his 26 AS, what he is saying is total 1 lakh amount he has received. And suppose, for example, he is an individual, and that was 1% TDS is also deducted. Now, if suppose for example, 1 crore amount he has received. Now, can he show in his income tax return lesser amounts? Not possible. So he has to show minimum 1 crore of turnover or above. Now, for example, in certain cases, what has happened is, property is sold to a resident, property is sold by a resident seller, and the buyer, when the time of making the payment, is deducting the TDS. So what happens is, once the buyer has deducted TDS, this amount will reflect in his 26 AS, and he has to show in the income tax return that he has sold his property and how much is the tax calculations has coming in. So that is where it helps in evasion, in checking of tax evasions. And then it widens the tax base. What happens is, year on year, if you see, many sections are added in the TDS returns, because of which the tax base is being added. Now, in fact, it is not just in some of the sections. It is like, even when cash is withdrawn, TDS has to be deducted by the bank. So what will happen is, suppose he has withdrawn so much of cash, then what is he doing it? So that is where it widens the tax base. So these are the objectives of the TDS. Now, here, as I've told earlier, there is a deductor, there is a deductee. Okay, in the case of the employment, the deductor is the employer and the deductee is the employee. In the case of rent, the tenant is the deductor and the owner is the deductee. In the case of contract charges, the contractee is the deductor and the contractor is the deductee. So here, in the case of TDS, the responsibility of deduction is for the payer. The person who is paying, he is responsible. Since he is deducting, that is the reason he is also called as a deductor. So it is his responsibility to see what are the sections applicable, deduct the amount, then make the TDS remittances, then file the TDS return, download TDS certificate, so that these amounts are reflected in the 26 AS of the deductee. So this way, there is one portion which when he is paying the amount, and this amount goes to the deductee's 26 AS, and the balance amount he is paying through the cash or bank. Whereas this amount will be in the 26 AS. So this deductee, what he will do is, at the time of filing the return, he can use this TDS amount from his income tax payments. If any excess is deducted, he can take the refund. If any short is there, balance amount he can pay, then file the return. Okay. So now every deductee is supposed to have a PAN number, and though it has to be also Aadhaar linked, and earlier it was said that each PAN should be Aadhaar linked. Now for this year, exemption has been granted that even if it is not Aadhaar linked, that is till 31st of March 2024, if it is not Aadhaar linked, it's okay. Otherwise, in subsequent years, it will be considered as if it is no PAN and higher rate of TDS is applicable. So every deductee supposed to have a PAN number. What is the meaning of PAN number? Now what happens is, department has given every SSC a PAN number. So income tax department identifies a person with this PAN number. Now, for example, they will not identify me as Ritesh Mittal. They will identify me as AFPPM 7619K. Okay. So this is how income tax department has given me a unique PAN number. Everyone a unique PAN number. TDS is applicable. In case of TDS is applicable. There is a question, in case TCS is applicable, how to know that TCS is applicable? So you have to see section 206, where there have been many items which are being reflected in the T06. And now if that is triggered, then TCS is applicable. So we'll come to that section 206 in the course of the presentation. So every SSC is supposed to have a PAN number. Okay. Now, what is a TAN number? As every SSC, every deductee here or SSC is having a PAN number, every deductor or collector is supposed to have a PAN number. Now, what does it mean? Now, why should I have a separate PAN number? Now, the thing is, when I'm making certain payments, okay, and deducting certain amounts, that amount does not belong to me, okay, that belongs to someone else. So it is only as a trust that amount is there with me. So what he does is he deposits the amount in a TAN number, okay, tax deduction and collection account number. So what happens is, so that number is allotted to the deductor, okay, wherein the amounts which are deposited doesn't belong to the deductor. So that is the reason the deductor's PAN number is now separate from his TAN number. So my PAN number is those amounts in this 26AS, those amounts for which these are my amounts. Whereas certain payments where I have deducted the amount, that amount doesn't belong to me. So I have been allotted a TAN number. So whatever amounts which are deposited in the TAN number, that doesn't belong to me. Okay, they are in trust for other persons. Okay, so the department has allotted a 10-digit PAN number and a 10-digit TAN number. So the form to apply for a PAN number is 49A and the form number to apply for TAN number is 49B. For all TDS challans, TDS returns, certificates, TAN number has to be mandatory given. Now, this is what is a challan for payment of PAN-based challan, that is for advanced tax, self-assessment tax. I'll be making the payment of challan by 280. Whereas for TDS, I'll be making the challan by 281. Okay, TDS. So that is the reason TDS challans are 280 challans are PAN based, whereas 281 challans are TAN based. Okay. Now the question is it mandatory that in all cases a deductor should have a TAN number? Where it is mentioned that Aadhaar link is not required up to, I'll come, sir. The circular is not mentioned like that. Okay. What it says is, even if there is a Aadhaar link is not done, deductor is not going to get a higher notation. Okay. We'll come to that. Now, is it mandatory that in all cases, TAN number is mandatory? There are 4 cases where the deductor need not have a TAN number. What are those 4 cases? Section 194IA, IB, 194M and 194S. These are the 4 cases where TAN number is not required for filing of TAN number is not required by the deductor. Whatever PAN number is having, with that PAN number only, he can straight away go and file the return. What are these 4 cases? 194IA. 194IA talks about transfer of immovable property other than agricultural land. So suppose if there is a sale of land, in that case, the buyer, when he is making the payment to a resident seller. If it is a non-resident seller, it goes under section 195. In that case, compulsory he is supposed to have a TAN number. Whereas if it is a resident seller, in that case, 194IA is applicable. So the buyer at the time of reduction of TDS, at the time of making the challan payment, filing the return, he need not have a TAN number. How is he going to make the challan payment? How is he going to make the return filing? I'll show you it in the presentation. Now, 194IB is wherein the rent is used for residential purposes. In that case, and the rent does not exceed 50,000. And when the tenant is making the payment to the landlord, okay, he need not have a TAN number. Then this is 194M, which talks about payments made for carrying out any work in pursuance of contract or commission or brokerage or fees for professional services in excess of 50 lakhs. So this is wherein the work is conducted for personal purposes. If it is for business purposes, therein compulsorily he is supposed to have a TAN number 194C, 194J, whatever the sections are applicable. But wherein if it is for personal, suppose I am constructing my residential house and I am making certain contract payments or commission or brokerage or fees, in that case, and if the amount is exceeding 50 lakh rupees, then under 194M, TDS has to be deducted. Here also, TAN number is not required. And lastly, 194S, wherein any transfer of virtual digital currency for cryptocurrency is transferred. In that case also, TAN number is not required. So every person is supposed to have a PAN number, and now so PAN number and TAN number is required. So here also there are two logins are there. One is a PAN based login and the other will be a TAN based logins. What are the income tax websites? So one website is for, I'll just now come stop it and okay. So this is the website of the income tax department, e-filing. Now there is user ID. Now should it be a PAN number or a TAN number? Now if there can be now two IDs. One is a PAN based ID. The second one is a TAN based ID. So here with regard to challan payments, any challan payments if I am making, then compulsorily I have to log in with the TAN based ID. So now this is a TAN based ID, wherein suppose when I have to make a challan payment, I'll say e-pay taxes. Okay. New payment. I'll select the assessment here. Okay. Now, for example, when I'm paying from last year, I'll select 24, 25. I'll say proceed. Under which section? Now, for example, if I have to make the challan payment for 192, say next, I'll give the amounts. So which way? Through net banking, debit card, credit card, or suppose if I have to generate, suppose if it's a chartered accountant and his client is calling him and asking him to pay by a check, then he'll write say by check and say which bank it is he wants to pay. He'll select the bank name and generate the challan and give it to the client. So this is one login, which is a TAN based login at income tax portal, eportal.incometax.gov.in. There is one more portal, which is for traces portal. Okay, this is one more portal for TDS, which is called the traces portal, tdscpc.gov.in. Here also, there will be, when we say login, again, there is a deductor login, okay, or a taxpayer login, okay. So deductor login is nothing but the TAN-based login, and when we say taxpayer login, it is a PAN-based login. So these are the two logins and the two sites. Okay, one is the e-portal income tax, and the second one is a traces portal, tdscpc.gov.in. Payment process, beginning of the payment process. I'll again share it, sir. Okay. So again, I'll come back to. So now what it is, are you clear with PAN number, TAN number? So every deductor is supposed to have a TAN number, except in these four cases. Fair enough? No. We are supposed to have a TAN-based login in the e-portal. Now, how do we have a TAN-based login in the e-portal? The first thing is you should have a traces login. Okay. Now, in the traces login on the left-hand side, there is a register for e-filing portal. Once you click there, and it will ask for the TAN number, PAN number, and PAN of the authorized person. It will take you to the income tax portal, and then you have to punch in those details, and you can create a TAN-based login at the e-portal. Now, what is the purpose of having a TAN-based login at the income tax portal? The purpose of having a TAN-based login in the e-portal is for making a challan payment. Okay. Now, whatever challan payments you have to do in eportal.incometax.gov.in. Fair enough. All challans will be generated only from eportal.incometax.gov.in. Now, if it is a 280 based challan, that is a PAN based challan. Suppose if I have to make a payment of my self-assessment tax, advance tax, in that case, it is I'll log into my PAN based login, and then I'll create a challan. Whereas if it is a TAN based challan 281, in that case, I have to log in to the eportal.incometax.gov.in with a TAN number. Once I log in there, under the e-file portion, I will select e-pay taxes. There in the e-pay taxes, I will select new payment. Okay. I will select new payment. Then I'll select the assessment year. Once I select the assessment year, it will say pay TDS or pay outstanding demands. I will select pay TDS. Without login, can we directly pay tax? Not possible now. Earlier it was options was there. Now without login, we cannot pay the taxes online. Then we have to select which section it is there. We have to select the right section code and then give the tax amount, surcharge, education cess amount. Okay. Without login, can we directly pay tax? Not possible. I'll show you. If you can go there and if you say taxes paid, again, it will take you to the login screen only. So now only with login, you can pay the taxes. Okay. Yes. What happens is many of the CS, what they do is they paid, they select this amount. And then finally here, when it says net banking debit card, pay at bank counter, they select pay at bank counter, then create the challan and give it to the clients. The clients can take that challan, it will have a validity. Within that validity, the client is supposed to make the challan payment. Okay. So all challans are now generated only from incometax.gov.in. Once the challan is paid, you need not get the challan copy. Those challans are also there in the income tax portal. You can get what are the challans which are paid. You can download those challans in this portal itself. Okay. This is the thing. Now, how critical is the giving a right section here? If by mistake, I have mentioned a wrong section code here. Okay. Instead of 192, I have mentioned 194. Is there a problem? Or I have clubbed two sections. There were two sections under which the challan were paid under 194C and 194 J. Under two sections, the challans has to be paid. So I had to pay one challan in one section, and I have to generate another challan in another section. But what has happened is I have paid the entire challan in one section. So 194C and 194J together I have paid in the 194C. Do I have an issue? You don't have an issue. So what happened is, once we file the challans, once we make the payment of challan, the amount is now credited in the TAN number. It has not gone to the 26 AS of the deductee. Now, from this credit to the TAN number, how does it go to the credit to the PAN number? It is by filing of TDS returns. So the first step is I make the challan payment, and the second step is I file the TDS return. Once I file the TDS return, what is there in the TDS return? In the TDS return, there are three contents: form details, challan details, and the deductee details. What is the form details? Form details is nothing but which quarter, what is the TAN number, which quarter, which year. Then who is the deductor, address of the deductor, who is the person responsible, address of the person responsible, PAN number, email ID and phone number. These are the form details. The second part is the challan details. So this challan, what I have paid, these details I am giving in the challan details. And the third part, and the third one is the deductee details. Okay. Wherein I'll mention in these challan, how many deductees are there. Suppose in one challan, there are 5 deductees. I'll write challan number 1. I'll write the details. And then when I go to deductees, this one I'll write 5 times. So in this one challan, how many deductees are 5? So 1 will come 5 times. And then in these deductees, these are the 5 deductees. So what happens is when you file the TDS returns, the TAN number will get the individual challans. Those amounts are reduced and the individual PAN numbers are now going to get the credit. So basically TDS is nothing but, TDS returns are nothing but like when we are making a RTGS or NEFT in a bank. That is what TDS returns does. It will debit those challans and it is going to credit those PAN numbers which are there in the TDS returns. Okay. So this is what TDS return does. Now one question you might ask, why should I take, why should I deposit when my TAN number first, file the TDS return, and then the amounts that are reflecting in the 26 years? Why straight away I will go and deposit in the PAN number of the deductee so that the amount will directly reflect in the 26 years? Is it correct? Yes or no? Put your answers in the chat box. So rather than depositing the amount in the TAN number, rather than filing the TDS return, why can't I straight away make the challan payment in the deductees? No. What is the impact? Yes, answer is correct. But what is the impact? See, end of the day, it doesn't matter. The amount is reflected in the 26 years of the deductee. When he files the return, he can claim the amounts. Where is the issue? Now I'll put it in this way. If I have to transfer certain amount to you, okay, what are the two options I have? One option is I make the payment in my bank account, transfer to RTGS or NEFT to your account. This is one way. Or straight away, I go and deposit the cash in your account. In the second option, tomorrow you can straight away say that, no, this cash deposit is done by me. This is not the payment which is received from you. This might be the possibility. Here also, if I go through the directive, income tax department will say that, no, this TDS is not done by you. It is not made in your TAN account. Then you have not filed the TDS return, and hence this direct payment doesn't belong to you. This is how the consequences will be. So there should not be any direct payment of amounts to the deductee. It has to be paid by the TAN number and then filing of TDS return. This is the route which has to be done. So now in this case, if the section code are wrongly mentioned in the TDS return, what should I do? In the TDS return, again in the challans, what should I do? In the TDS returns, again you have to mention the section code. As I have said, in the TDS return, there are three parts. One is the form details, which contains the basic details, okay, the deducted basic details. Then the second one is the challan details, and the third part is the deducted details. In the TDS returns, I have to again mention the section code. Okay, fair enough. Where is the section code? Is it there in the challan details? No, it is not there in the challan details. The section code has been taken away from challan details and now it is incorporated in the deductive details. So that means in the TDS return, when I am filing, I need not give any section code in the challan details. No. Then in that case, suppose if I say this is one challan which is paid, and then in these 5 deductees are there, I can give different section code to those 5 deductees. So now, initially I gave 194C as a section code. Now when I'm filing the return, I'm filing that challan, and in the deductees, I'm putting 1% as 194C, 191% as 194I, 1% as 194J, and other 2% as 194C. Which will prevail? The original sections which is there in the section code in the TDS challan will prevail, or the section codes which is there in the TDS returns will prevail. What will prevail? The section codes in the TDS return will override the section codes in the challan. So yes, when I am making the challan payments, it is asking for the section code. By mistake, if you have made any, or by mistake, if you have combined, then you can put the right section codes in the TDS returns. It will override it. Okay. This is what it says. Section code quoted in the challan for payment of tax deducted is no more relevant. Deductor can quote any section code on the challan for payment of TDS or other codes also. There will be no challan mismatch and no consequent TDS demand in this case. Since the section code is no more relevant, therefore CPC TDS has introduced a system wherein single challan can be used for payment of TDS under different section codes. So you can pay one challan, select one challan, and then put the right section codes in the TDS return. Now, you might say why the section codes are not removed. Yes, it is still there. Section codes are still there. Now, second case, I have made the challan payment. By mistake, what has happened is I have paid excess amount. Suppose 10,000 of tax had to be deposited. I have deposited 20,000. Can I use this tax in the second quarter? Yes, you can use it. If there also there is a surplus, can I use it in the third quarter? Yes, you can do that. If there is a surplus there, can I use it in the fourth quarter? Yes, you can use that. Okay. And it's possible to make single payment. Yes. Sir, 194C for individual, 1% tax reduction for firms, 2%. Can it possible to make single payment or twice? You can make single payment. In fact, what I'm saying is 194C and 194J also, if you are combined, no problem. You have to give the right section codes in the TDS returns. With regard to the challans, doesn't matter. So what they are focusing is when it comes to challans, the amounts, numbers, and the credits they are focusing. The balance things they are taking from the TDS return. So if there is a surplus in the third quarter, can I use it in the fourth quarter? Yes. If there is a surplus in the fourth quarter also, can I use it in the next year? Yes, that is also possible. So you can go 1 year back and 1 year later also. Okay. Which is not possible in 280 challans. Here you can go 1 year back and 1 year later also. It is not suggested to do that, but yes, if certain cases it has happened, you can do that. Still, if there is there, you can pay, you can take the refund also. But the process of refund is little, I will come if I possible, I'll show you the conditions also. Little impractical conditions are there for the refund. So it is better to take the file the returns itself and close it. This is what I am saying. If the deductee or inoperative PAN, okay, inoperative. Sir, it is there. So how to take a refund for the TDS returns? It is there in the Traces portal. The Traces portal to apply for refund is there. But if you see the conditions, what it says is there should not be any default in the TAN number. There should not be any defaults in any of those PAN numbers which are associated with the PAN number. Suppose, for example, if there is a bank is there which has around 5,000 branches. So each TAN, every TAN number will have the same PAN number. Okay. Suppose each branch has a different TAN numbers. So in all the TAN numbers with this PAN number is associated, there should not be any default. So certain impractical conditions are there. But if you are still able to satisfy that, there is a procedure to apply the refund in the Traces portal. While making a payment, which section needs to be selected for single challan payment? You can select any section, it says, but better to select the right section and pay it. But in case what I am saying is, by chance, if you have done a mistake, you can correct the right sections in the TDS return. After paying taxes in the quarter one, PAN is inoperative in the next quarters. Will the tax be, see, once it is inoperative, once he has mapped when does the PAN become inoperative? The PAN becomes inoperative if the other is not linked. Once he has done it, there is no possibility of that it becomes inoperative because there is no delinking process. Okay. So what it says is, if the collectors or deductee's PAN number has become inoperative, then a higher rate of TDS and TCS will be collected in accordance with 206A CC and 206A of the Income Tax Act. The CBDT circular dated April 23rd, 2024 states that transactions entered up to 31/3/2024 and in cases where the PAN becomes inoperative as a result of linking with Aadhaar on or before 31/5/2024, there shall be no liability on deductor or collector to deduct or collect the tax under 206A. See, what happened is, because of the inoperative PAN number, last year, many of the deductors started getting short deductions. See, what happens is, I am the deductor. Under 194C, I have deducted 1% because the deductee is individual. But his PAN is valid, but it has become inoperative because he has not linked his Aadhaar number. So after filing the return, I am coming to know that it is inoperative and the demands came in wherein saying that there is a short deductions. So with this, a relief has come that till 31st of March 2024, we will not get any such notices. But this is very much applicable from this first quarter onwards from 24-25 financial year. Okay. For last year, a benefit has been given. So there was a query on these lines, which I have now. So now, this is what every deductor is supposed to have a TAN number and every deductee is supposed to have a PAN number. 49A is to apply a PAN number. 49B is to apply a TAN number. There is a PAN ledger, which is nothing but 26AS. There is a TAN ledger in the Traces portal. Okay. So any demands which will be there, still be there. So now what should a deductor do? He should see what is the nature of transactions. Based on the nature of transactions, in case a demand is already paid before the notification, will it be refunded? Okay. You have to try and see the revise the return and check the status, sir. Okay. You see whether if there is, what happens is earlier because of the If you have already revised the return, you have added a one more challan, the amount has gone. Now, with this circular, you see the returns where there is surplus has come in the challan or not. If there is a surplus which has come, you can shift it to the next year. Okay. Or anyway, sir, what you have done is because of that, you have paid 20% tax. Okay. And with this 20% tax, you have added a PAN number. You have put his PAN number. That amount has already reflected in his 26 years. Okay. So now, since it is already reflected in this 26 years, no point reducing those amounts. You can leave it. Deduct 20% or whatever higher rate which is applicable. Earlier, it used to be no straight away this rate or 20%. Now, many sections, there are many different rates. Higher rates are different. So, whatever higher rate which is applicable, that will be reflected in his 26 years. Let him claim it. Okay. Now, the deductor has to see, first thing is, what is the nature of transactions? And based on the nature of transaction, under which section it is applicable. Now, based on the section code, he has to see whether what is the tax rate, and then he has to deduct the amount. Once the tax is deducted, he has to make the tax remittance, challan payment has to be done. Once the tax payment is done, in that case, he has to file the TDS return and download the TDS certificate. This is the process. Now, I'll start with the sections. A brief overview I'll give, sir, because if within the period I cannot cover the entire sections in detail, I'll give a brief overview. Then we have to cover the TDS returns, filing of those things also we have to go. Now, coming to section, so the section codes are from 190, sections are from 192 to 195. Starting from 192, which is for salaries. What's it say? This is in the case of salaries, the employer, who is the deductor, has to deduct tax at average rate. So that means he has to see how much tax this employee has to pay. Now, for example, he is paying certain salaries, and for the entire year, in the month of April, he has seen that the tax amount is coming through 12,000 or 1,20,000. So 1,20,000, he'll divide by 12. Every month, he will deduct 10,000. Okay. So that is what is so finally, when the employee is filing the return, he should not pay any taxes. Whatever the taxes with regard to the salaries or any other income which he has already notified to the employer, he is supposed to deduct the tax on that amount so that there is no payment of tax to the employee. So that is what it says is average rate. So based on the average rate, he should see what are the slabs which are applicable. Short deduction, sir. There is a question, demand raised by department for short deduction of TDS due to inoperative PAN during Q2 or so and so. Even after its relaxation, still it is showing the default list in the traces. Probably, sir, traces will take still more time because recently in the month of April only, last week only, with this notification has come. Probably it will take some time. Those demands will go away. So if it is purely on because of PAN and Aadhaar linking, you can ignore that. Okay. Probably next 2-3 months, those demands will go away. So we have to see what are the slab rates. Now, there are two regimes, old regimes, new regimes. See which regime is applicable. I'm not going to talk about the regimes and the slab rates. This has been given. Okay, based on the tax regime. Now, what if the employee doesn't give, how should the employer know that what tax regime the employee is going to follow? So it is the employee's responsibility to update the employer. Okay. Update the employer, the regime he is going to go in. So at the beginning of the financial year, he is supposed to update the employer under what regime he is going in. And if the employee does not update, in that case, the default tax regime is the new tax regime. Okay, will be applicable. Okay. So there is one more question again on the PAN linking. Circular number says that herein specifies that for transactions entered up to 31(3) years, in cases where the PAN becomes inoperative as a result of linking of Aadhaar on or before 31(3), if they are not linked before, what is the consequence? What not consequence? From this quarter onwards, it will be considered as at higher rate. So at least from this year, what we have to see, with the last year, we have seen most of the deductees for any transactions are same. Okay, 80 to 90% of the deductees are same. And with the last year, we know what are the defaults have already come in. So we know what are the PAN accounts who have not linked those Aadhaar numbers. Send a notice to those people and ask them to update the Aadhaar number. Otherwise, saying that these PAN numbers now from 1st April, at least from this quarter onwards, higher TDS rate is applicable. Because otherwise, it had been applicable last year also. So this one-time exemption is given not seeing the deductee. Not, it is only for the deductor, because already the deductor has been doing so many things. With this also, if an additional responsibility has been put on him to see that the PAN number is also linked with the Aadhaar number. So for that 1 year benefit is given. So take those last year deductees whose Aadhaar numbers are not updated and ask those deductees to update the Aadhaar numbers, give the copies. How should I know? On the income tax side, you can come to know. He has to, some basic details has to be punched in. You will know whether the PAN is linked to Aadhaar or not. So take those copies and only then update it. Okay. So this is with regard to the new tax regime. You have to see under 192 salaries. Then coming to over sections, I'll tell you in brief. 192A, some prematured withdrawal has been done from the employees' provident fund. In that case, it will fall under section 192A. The threshold is 50,000 and the rate applicable is 10% for individuals. Interest on securities like certain bonds which have been taken. So whenever the company is taking any payment of interest on those securities, TDS has to be deducted under 193. Threshold is 10,000. Rate of TDS deduction is 10%. Dividends. If a company is paying dividend, now there is the dividend distribution tax has gone away. So now this dividend is the TDS has to be deducted at the time of taking the payment. So 5,000 is the threshold limit and 10% is the rate. Interest if it is paid, okay, interest if it is paid by a banker or any other than banker under section 194A, on those interest amount, TDS has to be deducted at 10%. The threshold is 40,000 for banks and for others it is 5,000. Senior citizens, the threshold is 50,000 rupees under 194A. Now these are under winning from lotteries, online games, horse races, lotteries. 194B, BA, BB, and BP. The 30% is the TDS deduction rate. Slab rates are 10,000. Okay. There is a question I have in one PAN card, but in my Aadhaar card, no link to other PAN card. Now, how to check Aadhaar? I'll show how to check the Aadhaar and PAN linking, sir, once I complete this section here. 194C contract payments. If any contractor is making a contract payments to the contractor, then if it is an individual HGF, TDS is 1%. Other than individual HGF, it is 2%. If it is a single transaction, 30,000 is the cutoff. And for the entire altogether, it should not cross 1 lakh. So for one transaction, 30,000, single transaction should not cross 30,000. And for the entire year, it should not cross 1 lakh. Then there are certain, transport vehicles, okay, under 194C. Any person who is having only up to 10 transport vehicles, in that case, TDS need not be deducted if he gives a declaration saying that he is under so-and-so category. Now, these transporters, am I supposed to update these details? See, because he is giving his PAN number, and the TDS is not deducted. So, in filing the TDS returns also, I'm supposed to mention those transporters in the TDS list. And I have to tag there. So there is in the TDS return, there are certain lower deduction tabs are there. So there I have to tag the lower deduction tab that he is, in this case, TDS is not deducted because he is falling under the transporter category. But it is not that I don't show his details in the TDS return. Those details has to be mentioned. What happens is, as I told, when the TDS in the details are mentioned in the TDS returns, those amounts will be reflected in this 26AS. So what is important in 26AS is not just the amounts. It is also the how much amounts are being paid. Now, suppose in these transporters, in his 26AS, okay, TDS amounts are 0, but the overall under 194C, he has received some 40 lakhs. So when he is filing the income tax returns of his, he has to minimum show 40 lakhs of turnover. Okay. So these details has to be shown in the TDS return. Any insurance commissions, if it is paid, in that case, the 5% for individuals and 10% for other than individuals HUR. Life insurance policy payment, if it is done up to 1 lakh, there's a cutoff, 1% is the TDS rate. NSS, 2,500 is the cutoff, 10% is the rate. Repurchase of units by mutual fund, there is no limit, and 20% is the TDS rate. Commission, if it is on lottery tickets, again, G and H. So if you see, there are 3 sections which for commissions, 194D, insurance commission, 194G commission on lottery tickets and 194H commission on brokerage. All the rates are 5%. Only the cutoff is different here. Commission on lottery tickets, again the cutoff is 15,000. Commission on brokerage under 194H, the cutoff is 15,000. Any rents if it is paid, okay, then in that case we have to see whether it is for plant and machinery or equipment. It is 2%. If it is on land and building and furniture, it is 10%. Okay, the cutoff is 2.4 lakhs, 2,40,000. 194 IA, any transfer of immovable property. This is the section where I said the TAN number is not required. 194 IA, any transfer of immovable property other than agricultural land for excess in above 50 lakhs and above, TDS at 1% has to be deducted. Okay, how the TDS return will be filed in such cases, and that also I'll show. Okay, the later part of it. 194J, fees professional services. Okay, if it is for services for call centers, royalties, in that case the rate is 2%. Other than that, it is 10%. Cutoff is 30,000. Payment of dividend by mutual funds, 10% is the rate, 5,000 is the cutoff limit. Any compensation for transfer of certain immovable property other than agricultural land, 194 LA. What has happened is there is a plot is there and which has come on the road. So government has taken a part of the plot for some road winding or some other purposes. Compulsory acquisition has happened. In that case, government, when it is making the payment of the compensation, it is supposed to deduct TDS at the rate of 10%. Cutoff is 2.5 lakhs and section is 194 LA. 194, and if there is a cash withdrawal, okay, in that case, the banker is going to deduct the TDS at the rate of 2%. If the returns were regularly filed, in that case, the cutoff is 20. The no ITRs are filed. Okay, for the 3 years, the cutoff is 20 lakhs. If ITRs are regularly filed, then the cutoff is 1 crore. Okay. Now, 194A, payment for sale of goods or provision of services by e-commerce operator through its digital. So any payment which is done through e-commerce operator, in that case, e-commerce operator is supposed to deduct TDS at the rate of 1%. Cutoff is 5 lakhs. Now there is one more important section which I'll come later, sir, which is applicable for purchases. Okay, 194Q. That we will discuss along with the 206C 1H. Okay. So what is 206C? It is tax collected at source. Okay. Now, this is 206C. As I've said, the difference between the TDS and TCS is, when it comes to TCS, it is 1% is being the TCS amount is, I'm just a moment, I have some disturbance here. Rent paid below 2.4 lakhs, whether we have to show in the TDS return, not required, sir. Only when the deduction is done, that cases only we have to show. Okay. There is one question with regard to IT software, but this is a specific section. We can send it to me. I'll take it to later stage. Okay, take this question later. Now, tax collected at source, what happens is, as I have said it is basically certain cases where there is a sale is there or service is being provided. In that case, as GST is added, in the similar lines, TCS is also added. Now, for example, these are the list of transactions. Liquor for alcoholic consumption is there. In that case, a person who is selling the liquor, he is going to add 1%. Timber wood for forest lease, 2.5%. Tandu leaves. Timber wood by any other mode other than forest leased, 2.5%. Forest produce, 2.5%. If any person is selling scrap, okay, he is going to add TCS. Minerals like minerals, 1%. Purchase of motor vehicles exceeding 10 lakhs, 1%. Parking lot, toll plaza, mining and quarrying, 2%. So, for example, if a person is selling scrap, okay, along with sending the invoice, he will add TCS at the rate of 1%. So that is why TCS is tax collected at source. So the seller is adding it, and charging this amount from the buyer. And when he files this return, this amount is reflected in the 26 years of the buyer. Okay. Now this is 206C1H. Here what has happened is where there is a, now this is 0.1 TDS is applicable. Okay, TCS is applicable. There are two sections. Okay, 194Q and 206C1H. What does it say? Now, in case number 1, where is a seller is selling certain goods. Okay, basically the target is your purchases and sales figure. Okay, when the seller is selling the goods, if his turnover in the preceding financial year was 10 crores and above, and in a for a particular person, the amount of consideration is 50 lakhs and above, in that case, the seller is liable to collect tax at source at the rate of 0.1%. And if the PAN is not given, in that case, it is 1%. Okay, that is 206C1H. Then 194Q is TDS, wherein TDS is applicable for the buyer basically. TCS is applicable for the seller. Now the buyer, same conditions. In the earlier year, preceding year, his turnover was 10 crores or above. Then the liability, okay. He is liable to deduct TDS, okay, at the time of payment or credit. And for this payment, 50 lakhs should have been crossed. And here also the rate is 0.1%. And in case the PAN number is not given, the higher rate of 5% is applicable. So here also, if you see both the sections, for seller, 0.1% TCS has to be added. For buyer, 0.1% TDS has to be deducted. So that means, are both of them applicable or only one is applicable? What it says is, if any transaction or purchase of goods attract TDS as well as 194Q, tax collected at source, then only 194Q shall be applied. There is one more circular number 13 of 2021. It says, for any reason, TCS has been collected by the seller, because first it is TDS or TCS. It is, first is the invoice is generated. Okay. So it is the seller who is generating the invoice first. Only once the invoice is received, subsequently the liability for the buyer is generated. So in that case, in the invoice itself, the seller has added TCS. Okay. In that case, so what it says is, TCS has been collected by the seller of the act before the buyer could deduct TDS on the same transaction. Such transaction would not be subject to TDS again by the buyer. This concession is provided to remove difficulty. So basically what it says is, in one transaction, if both TDS and TCS is applicable, any one of it has to be done. So in case if the buyer feels that, it is cumbersome for him to win, he can ask the seller to add TCS in the invoice itself, so that straight away based on the invoice, he can account it and make the payment. Now there is one more section which is 206C1G, which is basically for any one vendor reached 50 lakhs. Okay, 50 lakhs crossed. We deduct for financial year. See, you can straight away do that, or again, you can see for the next year also if it crosses 50 lakhs. But once it crosses 50 lakhs, it is better straight away from next year. You can start it from the first number. Okay. As Sudhir was pointing it out, okay, in one of the case, I'll tell you the significance. What happens if you don't suppose if the TDS is not deducted? The consequence is 30% of the expenditure will be disallowed. Okay. Now, for example, there is a person is there who has made certain purchases, okay, from a specific seller. Now the seller, he has purchased, he has purchased from the sellers or from various other sellers. His total purchases is around 10 crores and he has not deducted TDS. Now on those 10 crores, 30%, if it is disallowed, 30% expenditure, how much it is? 3 crores of expenditure is disallowed. Now in this 3 crores, suppose if he's falling under 30% tax bracket, you can see how much is the tax liability. So for just 0.1%, if TDS is not deducted, sometimes he might end up in these cases. Okay. And if he tries to avoid it, already there is a GSTN portal which says how much purchases he has done from each seller. So because in GST, every invoice, the seller GSTN number is there and the buyer GSTN number is there. So that data is already there in the GSTN portal. So the department will pick up, as Sudhir has already said that now there will be information sharing between the GST department and the income tax department. So income tax department will know that, okay, this person has purchased from this seller this much of amounts. In the preceding year, already 10 crores has crossed. 50 lakhs is also crossed. Okay, fair enough. Based on the GST department, they will send GST data. They will straight away send the notice. Okay. So this is how the consequences are going to be. We are doing government projects, whether we have to collect government department, we have to collect TCS. If you have to see whether it in these sections, if the TCS is coming in. Okay, as far as I know, you just check the TCS at 206C, whether it is applicable for government departments also. Okay. Because I am telling you the overview, check the 206C, whether it is applicability, whom it is applicable. If it is for government department is not there, straight away you can leave it. Now, so here certain outbound remittances are there under liberalized remittance schemes are there. Then see whether it is for education purposes, okay, medical purposes or other purposes. And the next part is some tour packages are there. In that case, TCS has to be added. If it is for education purposes, up to 7 lakhs nil. Apart from beyond 7 lakhs, it is 0.5%. If it is for medical treatment or education purposes, up to 7 lakhs, it's nil. And then if there is other than financial assistance, it is 5%. If financial assistance is taken, then it is 0.5%. Any other purposes, it is now 20%. Earlier, it was 5%. And overseas tour packages, again, 20%. Up to 7 lakhs, it is 5%. Okay. So these are the overview of the TDS and the TCS. There is one more section 195, wherein any payment to foreign residents, any non-residents, if it is done, in that case, the section code applicable is 195. These all sections from 192 to 194 series, they are only applicable to payments which are done to resident deductees. Okay. If the deductee is a non-resident, in that case, it goes under section 195. Okay. So now, based on these sections, okay, the deductor has seen the section code, the nature, and has decided that yes, there is a TDS deduction liability is there or the TCS liability is there. So what it does, he will, based on the section code, he will deduct the amount. Now, for example, in this case, if 1 lakh payment has to be done, he pays only 90,000 through cash or bank and he deducts this 10,000 amount. What should he do? This 10,000 he is supposed to deduct it and pay with his challan number 281. This is called as tax remittances. So when the tax has to be remitted, okay. Or first thing is when the tax has to be deducted. What section says is at the time, in the case of salaries, it has to be deducted at the time of making the payment. Whereas other than salaries, it has to be deducted at the time of making payment or credit, whichever is earlier. Now let us take this example. Okay. There is a college is there. Okay. The college is not paying any payment to the faculties from January to December. Why it has not made any payment to the faculties from January to December? There is no funds with the college. Okay. So all of a sudden in the month of December, they have made the salary payments from January to December. Now in the case of December, are they going to file Q1, Q2, Q3 return, or straight away they are going to file the Q3 return with the total amounts? So what it says is, in the case of salaries, it is at the time of making the payment. Now they have making the payment on 31st of December. So 31st of December, straight away they will file Q3 single line entry and they'll show that this much of salary has to be paid and this is the TDS amount. They will not file Q1, Q2 returns. Straight away they'll show the amount in the Q3 returns. Whereas, let us say, in the same case, the person who is going to the college is not on a full-time basis. He is going on a retainer basis. Suppose a chartered accountant is going there and teaching on a part-time basis. In that case, what is the applicability? Obviously, in this case, it is not a salary basis. In this case, it is not on salaries. So here what we have to say is at the time of making the payment or credit, whichever is clear. Okay. Making the payment is okay here. Same case, payment is done on 31st of December. So 31st of December is the making the payment. But what is the meaning of credit? Now, every month I was giving my invoice to the college. So April month I have given the invoice, May month I have given the invoice, till December month I or the faculty was making in the invoice. Now, is it the invoice date, or those invoice the college has entered in the books of accounts? Okay, like every say April month invoice they have entered in the books on a quarterly basis. Okay, in the books they pass the due entry, or it is a release. So is it the invoice amount or the date they have passed this entry in the books of accounts? So what is the meaning of date of credit? Payment is very clear. What is date of credit? Date of credit is not the invoice amount. It is the date on which the due entry is passed. Okay, that is the date of credit. And in fact, sometimes the date of credit can be before the period of payment. Is suppose in some cases, okay, in some cases, the due entries are there. So in some cases, provisions have been passed, provision entries have been passed. In those provision entries, it will be deemed as due entries. Okay, and TDS has to be deducted. So, what is the date of deduction? It is at the time of payment in the case of salaries. In the case of other than salaries, it is the date of payment or credit, whichever is in earlier. So this is the first date, because there are totally 3 dates will come, sir. The first date is date of payment. Then the second one is date of payment or credit. The second date is date of deduction, and the third date is date of remittances. Okay. So these 3 dates will be asked. Once again, I'm telling you, date of payment or credit. Second thing is date of deduction. In the TDS return, date of payment or credit and date of deduction should be same. If it is not same, interest is applicable. Now, once the date of deduction has happened, then the remittance should happen there. Okay. Then within what period I have to remit the amount? So once the deduction is done, can I keep the amount in my pocket? No. You are supposed to remit this amount. Within what period? So if it is a government deductor, in that case, that is without making a challan payment, they have to do the remittance on the same date. And if it is other than government deductors, within 7 days from the end of the month. So April month, 7th of May, they have to make the challan payment. May month, 7th of June, June month, 7th of July. And the last March month, they have to do the challan payment by 30th of April. Okay. Now, you might ask this case, what is this government deductors? How are they going to make the payments without challan payment? See, what happens is government deductors, they don't make challan payments. They will only pass entries, because here also there is the person deducting is a treasury department, and the person who is receiving is also the treasury department of the government. So they don't make any physical transfer. They only pass book entries. Okay. How do they pass book entries? And when they are not making the challan payments, how the challans are generated? So the challans are generated by filing a monthly return called as 24G. So I'll give you a brief background. So basically in government deductors, every DDO, drawing a disbursement officer, is the person responsible for deducting TDS. So in above the DDO, there is accounts offices there. Suppose there is an accounts office which has some 10 DDOs. So these accounts office is going to file a monthly return called as 24G, which says for each DDO, for each TAN number, for which quarter, how much amount has been deducted. So with the filing of these 24G, these amounts which are being reflected by the accounts office, they become the challans. So rather than calling them as challan identification numbers, they are called as book identification numbers. So every accounts office is going to file a form number 24G, which becomes the challan for the DDOs. This is the background. Okay. But whereas other than government deductors, they have to make the payment by 7th of the next month. And in March month, till 30th of April. What if they don't make the payment? Then interest is applicable. In the case if there is a delay in deduction, it is 1%. And if there is delay in payment, it is 1.5%. Okay. Then how to file? So this is with regard to the remittances. I have shown what are the sections is and how the challans has to be paid and within what period it has to be paid. Now come with the second part, which is for filing of TDS returns. Now, with regard to the TDS returns, we have 4 returns: 24Q, 26Q, 27Q, and 27EQ. 24Q is for salaries, 26Q is for other For all other cases, 27Q is non-resident deductee and 27EQ is tax collected resource. Just see important. 27EQ is such an important section that one specific TDS returns is there for them. 195, as I've said, payments to non-residents, there is a specific TDS returns for 24Q is there. So now 24Q, if it is for salary payments, 24Q, it goes as a specific returns. So these three sections, 192, which is for salaries, there is a specific return is there. 195 non-resident, there is a specific return 27Q, and for 206, which is tax collected, so there is a specific return 27EQ. All other cases, it is 26Q. Fair enough. So these are the 4 TDS returns. What is this Q stands for? 24Q, 26Q, 27Q, 27EQ. Q stands for quarterly. Okay. So basically till 2005, it was a annual return. So that time the returns were 24, 26, 27, 27E. Subsequently from 2005, first quarter onwards, this Q was added. Okay. What is the due date for filing of TDS return? The due date is basically from the end of the quarter, within 1 month, the return has to be filed. So first quarter return, which is 30th of June, it has to be filed by 31st of July. Second quarter, 30th of September, to be filed by 31st of October. Third quarter, 31st December, return has to be filed by 31st of January. For last quarter, we have seen that there was an extended period for challan payment. Okay. So there it can be filed till 31st of May. Whereas for TCS returns, the due date is lesser period. So TDS returns, it is 1 month from the end of the quarter. TCS returns, it is 15 days from the end of the quarter. And last quarter, there are 2 full months given for TDS returns, whereas for TCS returns, it is only 1.5 month. So for this 4th quarter, today is 8th, we have to file the TCS returns by 15th of May. 4th quarter TDS returns can be filed by 31st of May. Okay. How do we file the TDS returns? For filing the TDS returns, there is a utility is there, which is called as a return preparation utility. You can either use any third-party software, or there is an NSDL utility, which is provided by the, you can download the return, which is called as the return preparation utility. You have to download the return preparation utility. Okay. The site is protein-tin-pan, or else you can just say in the Google return preparation utility. It will straight away take you there. Now the utility version which is going on is 5.1. So Java background is required. A folder will be downloaded. Once you open the folder, various files will be there. You have to click on TDS RPU file. Once you click there, okay, you will see this is how a utility will open. And if you have to select which form number, 24Q, 26Q, 27Q, 27EQ, the utility is same for all. Okay, I'll just show you the utility once. Stop share. Okay, this is the return preparation utility. You have to select the form number. Okay, suppose if I'm selecting 26, it is asking you whether it is a regular return or a correction return. Regular return is the first return which is filed is a regular return. By some mistakes has happened or certain deductees have not been added. In that case, you can revise the return, which will be called as a correction return. In that case, if you are revising the return, you have to select the correction return and you have to import the what do you say as a console file from the traces portal. So that console file will be downloaded. So this is basically, I'll give you again a brief background. What is this console file? See, way back in 2005 when the TDS returns were started, the returns when the second time when I'm revising the return, what the return generates is a file validation utility. A FUV file is generated that is being uploaded into the portal. So second time when we were revising the return, we used to select the first FUV file and then import the data. What if I want to again revise the return for the second time? Should I take the first FUV or should I take the second FUV? Because in the FUV returns, suppose suppose in the first return there were 100 deductees, in the second return I'm adding only 5 deductees. So these 5 deductees will only be there, or what are the changes you are making to the initial deductees? Only those will be there. So I can neither take the first return or I can take the second return. So we used to create something file as again a updated return and then import it. Now that is not needed. You can straight away download the console files from the prices portal, which will given the updated return as per the case. Based on the console files, you can revise it. You can select the correction return, download, import the console file, make the respective changes and upload it there. Now in the first case, I will only say it's a regular return. Once I say that this is how it will open. As I've said it, the TDS return, there are 3 details: form details, challan details, and the deductee details. What are the form details? It will ask me which is the financial year which is applicable to, what is the category of the deductor, which is the form number. Okay. Now I'm selecting here Q4 return. Okay. What is the category of the deductor? Now if I say it is a company. So these are the form details: TAN number, PAN number, address of the deductor, and the person responsibility details. Then the challan details, and then here the deductee details. Okay. So in the challan details, I'm going to punch in the entries, and the annexure details will be the employee, the deductee details here. Okay. Now in this one challan, I'm saying that there are 5 deductees are there. So here what has happened is this challan serial number 1, there are totally 5 deductees. So this way you have to fill in the challan details. Challan details, what is it? TDS surcharge education says interest, fees and penalties. What is this fees? This is nothing but the late filing fees. Okay, 200 rupees per day. If there is a delay in filing, you have to put in there. Then this is challan identification number, which contains the BSR code, challan serial number and the date of challan. Whether the TDS has been deposited by book entry, yes and no. This is only in the case of government department, you have to say it is yes, where it is the challan is paid by book entries by filing of 24G. All other cases, it will be no only. Okay. Interest, how much is this allocated? What is the difference? What is the difference between this interest and this interest? Basically, this interest is the total amount of interest which is there in this challan. Suppose if this challan total interest is 10,000 and I want to allocate in this return 2,000. So I'll write here 10,000 and I am allocating it here 2,000. Because see, in the deductee details, what happens is I'm only giving. Okay, you are not able to see here. I'm having the screen share this time. I'll again share the screen. You are able to see the RPO here. Please update it in the chat box. Yes. Okay. So I'll start again. See. Yes. Now. See, basically there are 3 details. That form details, once you open the RPO, it is this way: form details, challan details, and the deductee details. The form details is nothing but what is the name of the company, what is the name of the deductor, okay, what is the financial year, which quarter you are filing, what is your PAN number, what is your TAN number, PAN number, the name and address of the deductor, along with the email ID, phone number, and the name and address of the person responsible, along with the email ID and mobile number. Last quarter details also it is going to ask. Then we have this challan details. Okay. What is this challan details? TDS surcharge education says interest based on the challan, will give it here. And then the BSR challan identification number. Okay, again, PAN number, sir. If the PAN is not changed as valid, so and so, then we have to pay. No, sir. For last year, the exemption is given. Okay. For last year, even if it is invalid, okay, till 31st of March, whatever deductions I've done, even if the PAN numbers are invalid, those amounts, those default amounts will go away. That is what it is saying, sir. So BSR code, this is challan identification number, which contains 3 things: challan BSR code, challan serial number, and date of deposit. Then we have mode of deposit through book entry. So this book entry is only applicable for government departments, as I have told you. Government departments, in certain, if they won't want to make challan payment, they can make book entries and file 24G monthly return, which will become challan for them. So they will say yes here. All others will have to say no there. Now, interest, how much is allocated? Others and what is the major head? If it is paid by the taxpayer or if it is raised by the department, it will say 400. Now, if you see here, there is one interest column here and there is one interest column here, which says interest to be allocated. What is the difference between this interest and this interest? This interest is basically how much of interest is there in the challan. Now, for example, 10,000 interest is paid. In that interest, in this quarter, I am allocating 2,000. So I'll say 10,000 here and right here 2,000. So that means in this quarter, it will pull only 2,000 here. Balance 8,000 is still going to be there in the challan. What can I do? I can use that challan in the separate returns also. So for all the returns, suppose I have paid one challan for interest, I'll suppose 10,000 single challan is paid. I'll use the same challan here and every time I'll write here 10,000 and whichever return I am allocating, I'll write those numbers here. So this way the interest will be allocated. Here it will be deductee details is going to come here. I have added one challan here. So in that one, I have selected 5 deductees. So with this one challan, 5 deductees have been matched. So here what I am supposed to give here. What is the section code? That is what I am saying. The section code has now been removed from the challan and has been put in the deductee. Now, suppose I have selected 194C there. I have made the challan payment. And now here I can give different section codes here. Okay. Now, suppose for one deductee, I gave 194C. One case I gave here 194IA rent. Here 194J I select. Okay. So that means now which section code will prevail? This section code which I am giving here or this section code which I have given in the challans at the time of generating the challan. These section codes which I am putting in the TDS return will override the section codes which are there in the challan. So even if there is any mistake there or if you have made a single payment also, it doesn't matter. Okay. Any deductee reference is there, PAN number, name of the deductee. Again, 3 dates will come here. What are those 3 dates? Date of payment or credit, then date of deduction and date of challan payment. So where is the date of challan payment? All the challans I have mapped this year one and this one again I'm giving here in this one date of challan payment, date of deposit. So these are the 3 dates: date of payment or credit, okay, date of deduction and challan payment. So which quarter it is applicable? Based on what? It is applicable on based of deduction. If the based date of deduction is falling in the first quarter, it will go to the details will go in the first quarter. If the date of deduction is in the second quarter, the return will go into the second quarter. Suppose for the entire year, I have not deducted. And finally on 31st March, I have deducted all amounts for, okay, no problem. I am going to pay interest also. So I'll get various dates of the entire year and date of deduction will be 31st of March. Okay. Interest will be applicable. And based on that, by April end, I have made the payments. So here, date of payment or credits can be any date, but the date of deduction should be only pertaining to that quarter. Okay. This is what I was saying. How should the return should know under which, suppose here, what should the lower deduction tax are there? Now, for example, here under 194C, there is a transporter which is sitting here. Okay. So how should the department come to know that he is a transporter? I will select T as a transporter tab is there. So that means here I have not deducted the amount because he is a T, this is a transporter is there. So that is where if I don't give here T, system will not know that he is a transporter and it will say that it is 194C, this much of amount you would have deducted. You are not deducted. Deductee code here. If it is an individual or employee, one, otherwise individual employee, it has to be here. See, we have seen various sections, various things are given, but how should the system know that it is an individual or employee, it is a transporter? For everything, there is a code which has been given. Those has to be filled in. Otherwise, short deduction, late payment, these things will come in. The rate of which tax has been deducted. If any, the deductee has gone to the department, has taken a lower deduction certificate is there. That certificate number has to be given there. He has to validate that here. And as I've told, in the under 194N, the certain cash withdrawals has done, then the banker is going to show the amounts here. Okay. So these are with regard to the deductee details. Okay. So 3 things here: return details, form details, challan details, and deductee details here has to be filled in. Now, when it comes to employees, okay, for the 24Q, there is one more annexure which is called as the annexure 2. For employees, this will be called as annexure 1. This is 26Q. Similar line 24 will also be there. Only thing is, rather than saying sections, we'll say only it is 192. Okay. And we will give all the employee details here. So annexure 1 will have all month-on-month details. In the quarter 4, there is an additional annexure which is called as the annexure 2, which is only for section 192 24Q return. Annexure 2, we give the entire salary details for the entire year based on the form 16. Okay. So annexure 2, what will happen is all the yearly details are given. Now, for example, there is an employee, for him 1,20,000 has been deducted. So first month, April month, 10,000 deducted, second month 10,000 deducted, third month 10,000 deducted has gone in first quarter return. Second quarter 10,000 gone in the second quarter return. Third quarter 10,000 gone in the third quarter return. Fourth quarter 10,000 shown in the annexure 1 of the fourth quarter. In annexure 2, I will show the entire salary details based on the form 16, how much, what is the other incomes, then what are the chapter 6A deductions, what is the total salary, and now how much is the TDS deducted 1,20,000, and any balance if it is payable automatically. There should not be any balance payable, should not be there, because tax should have been deducted under 192 at the average rate. If so, if any balance is being payable comes, that will become as a short deduction category. So that is the reason in the case of salaries, short deduction notices will come only in quarter 4. Fair enough. So this is with regard to the filing of TDS return. Now, in the case when we are generating the challan, okay, I'll just close it here, stop it here. Again, I'll go back to my PPT. So, before filing the TDS return, see, you might say that, sir, there is no, once a TDS can be written is filed, it is very easy to revise the TDS return. Unlike, GST returns, once it is filed, cannot be revised, or any other returns which we have filed cannot be revised. TDS returns, it has been cases, way back in 2005 when the traces portal came in, for one return filing, there were more than 20 revisions were there. So yes, in TDS return, there is one comfortability is when you can file any number of revisions. But the question is, why so many number of revisions are coming in? So end of the day, the data has to be matched, the data has to be correct. And these precautions, if you take in, there will be no need of any revision of TDS returns. What are they? Match all the challans with the TAN login. So there is, now the system also does in that. There is one file. I have shown you how to generate the challan in the TAN login. Therein, you can download a file called as CSI file, challan status inquiry file. We are getting declarations from transporters for non-deduction of TDS. These are also mentioned in the quarterly returns or not. So that is what once you are getting declarations from the transporters not deducting the TDS, you are not deducting TDS, but you are mentioning those details in the TDS returns and you are selecting the tag as T. So suppose a transporter is paid 10,000 rupees and TDS deduction is 0. So you have to write the name of the transporter, PAN number of the transporter in the deducted details, his name, then how much is the amount paid? Suppose 10,000 is paid. TDS deduction is 0. Then tag as lower deduction tab as T. So this amount will go in his 26 years. This 10,000 will be reflected in his 26 years that this amount has been paid and the amounts are 0. But based on these declarations, you are supposed to file the TDS returns. Otherwise, what is the use? How will the department or how will these data will be going to the transporters? Because the objective of the TDS is to ensure that, okay, no amounts are deducted, but at least the transporter should show these amounts in his income tax returns. So if you don't show in your income, these TDS returns, he'll just remove those amounts from his income tax returns. So with this objective, these amounts has to be shown in the TDS return with a T tag. Right? Okay. So the challans has to be matched properly. Okay. The BSR code. Sir, will there be a problem if the form tab in last tab for entering RR number of the previous acknowledgement have not been given? Doesn't matter, sir, if there is a, those earlier receipt numbers, even if you don't give it, but it is better to give it. Even in some cases, if it doesn't match, I have not seen any default which has come because of that. Okay. Then interest challan should match properly. Other ones, the challan mismatches, notices will come. Or some cases, what has happens is challan overconsumption happens. Okay. That also should not happen because as I've said, single challan can be used for various quarters. It can be used for various years also. Sometimes what happens is it is shown in, it might be shown in the quarter 4 return. It is also shown in the quarter 1 return. The overconsumption might happen. It should not, you should see in those lines. Interest paid should be in the correct columns as I've shown here. How much is the interest which is shown in the challan and how much is the interest which is allocated has to be shown correctly. PAN number should be correctly given. And now as our issue today, Aadhaar number should also be matched. Sections code should be correct. Even though the sections are not correct in the challan, it doesn't matter, but it should be rightly shown in the TDS return. Section percentage is also very important. Sometimes, the TDS deduction is 2%, by we show the percent as 10%. It will show it as a lower deduction. Company or individual code tab has to be given properly. There are 3 dates I have given you: date of payment or credit, date of deduction, and challan dates. So date of payment or credit and date of deduction should be same. And the challan date should be within 7 days from the end of the month, within 7 days, and from the last quarter within 30th of April. Okay. Lower deduction and non-deduction tax should have been proper. Otherwise, a short deduction notice is going to come. 197 certificates, if any deductee has gone to the department and taken any 197 certificates from the government, those certificates has to be validated in the traces portal. And now the option has come, you can validate the portal and you can see the data also. Those amounts has to be checked in. Amount of deduction and the amount of payment. How much is the deducted and amount of payment? Those should be same. In 24Q quarter 2, that is, I have said 24Q quarter 4 return, there is unknown called as annexure 2, which is the yearly details. So the tax calculations has to be correct there. Otherwise, notice is going to come. So these precautions you have to take before filing the TDS return. It is quite possible that in some cases, your utility, the software itself is checking it. If it is not checking it, then you have to check it manually. Lower deduction tabs I have given you. What are those lower deduction tabs? This is the list here. Any 197 certificate is taken, you have to select the lower deduction tab as A. If form 15G and 15H has been taken, various section, for suppose a banker, I don't want my banker to deduct TDS because my interest which I am receiving is below the exemption limit and other incomes are below the exemption limit. I'll give him form 15G or 15H. Various other sections are there wherein 15G and 15H are applicable. In that case, I'll select B. Suppose PAN number is invalid and I'm deducting higher amount. In that case, I'm select T tab there. So once I select C tab there. So what happens is once I select C tab, subsequently I cannot revise and reduce that number. So subsequently, once I've deducted 20%, the deductee comes back to me and says, no, sir, I'm having this PAN number. This is my PAN number. Earlier, he was not giving the PAN number. Now he's giving me the PAN number. So now when he's giving me the PAN number and I want to reduce the amount, not possible. That is C tab. Transporters, it is T tab. Just imagine that the transporter, if the PAN number becomes invalid, then higher rate of 20% will be applicable. So from 0 straight away, it will go to 20%. Y tab is there where the amounts have not crossed the threshold limit. So basically, for example, in the case of rent, 2,40,000 is the yearly threshold limit. So for example, 20,000 is the limit. Now, in one case, what happens is first 3 months, he was paying less than 20,000 and straight away, all of a sudden, because of the rent increase, now if I estimate the amount has crossing 2,40,000. Now, should I deduct those amounts which I paid for the first 3 months also? Yes. Now, if I give that number, old dates, it will show it as a short deduction, or in that case, I have to select as white tab because earlier I have not deducted because the threshold has not crossed. Okay. Now, S is for software which is acquired for 194J and Z is no deduction on payments with regard to 197A. Okay. So once the data is filled in the return preparation utility, you have to create a file which is called as the file validation utility file is there. So you have to select. So here, if you say 2 browsers are there, first browse is, it is pulling the CSI file that is called as Challan Status Inquiry CSI file. So shortcut, that extension is called as, that is the Challan Status Inquiry extension. That file you have to select and say import. Where do I get the CSI file? The CSI file you can download from the TAN login. In the TAN login, I have shown you how to generate the Challan. There itself, it will give you an option to download the CSI file. So this will check because the entire utility is being done offline. So the system will check what are the data which is there in the portal and that data which you have imported into the return. If they both are matching, then otherwise it will give you a warning. Okay. You can see the warning. Sometimes what happens is in the portal, certain challans are not reflected immediately. It might be reflected later. So in the CSI file, it is not there, but in the challans I have put in, it might give a warning. Just you can see if it feels good enough, you can upload it. And the second is, where do you want to where do you want to save the FUV file or the error file. So suppose if the entire file is correct, there are no errors, it will create a file called as FUV file. If there are errors, it will give you the list of errors which are there. Okay. And then you can say validate. In case if it is a revised return you are putting in, then it will also ask you the console file path also. Okay. Then you have to select the console file path also, and then you have to say validate. That will say file validation successful. This is how a form 27A will be generated along with the FUV file. Now what you have to do is you have to go to the TAN login and upload this FUV file with a digital signature, or else you can go to any TIN facilitation center. You have to sign the 27A. The person responsible will find the 27A and take this file FUV in some electronic format and give it to him. He is going to upload the data. So what does this 27A contain? This 27A contains the overall, what you have seen, the form details, who is the organization, address, the person responsible address, and overall control totals will be there. Okay. Along with the FUV file, he'll match the control totals and he's going to upload the returns. So both the options are there for uploading. You can do it from your TAN login, or you can go with the TIN facilitation center. Obviously, TIN facilitation center is going to make certain nominal charges is going to charge. Okay. So this is how a 27A will be there. How do I upload the return? Under the TAN login, go to file income tax returns. There you will have deduction of TDS form TDS returns, quarterly TDS returns. Select that. It says let's get started, which form number 24Q, 26, 27Q, 27EQ. Select the one. Then select whether it is for which year. Select the quarter, whether it is regular or correction. Zip that FUV file into a zip file and then upload it. Okay. And once you have uploaded, it will e-verification will happen, whether you want to verify with the Aadhaar number or a digital signature or through bank account or alert mode. Do the e-verification and the 15-digit acknowledgement will be generated. And if you do it for a TNFC, this is how the acknowledgement will be generated. This is what is filing of TDS returns. Is the job ended here? Once you have filed the TDS return, you are supposed to issue TDS certificates to the deductee. What is the period within which TDS certificate has to be issued? In the case of salaries, by 15th of June, the TDS certificates has to be issued. It is in this way, sir. March payment I have done by April end, and the returns I have filed, TDS returns I have filed by May end. Now by 15th of June, you are supposed to issue the TDS certificate. So 15 days are given from the end of the due date of filing the TDS return. Whereas all other cases, whereas in the case of 26Q, it is 16A TDS certificates, whereas in the case of TCS, it is 27D. It is 15 days from the due date of filing the TDS or TCS return. For example, in the case of TCS returns, it is within 15 days from the end of the quarter. First quarter, the TCS return has to be filed by 15th of July. So 30th of July becomes the due date of issuance of TCS certificates. Or in the case of TDS certificates, 31st of July is the due date for quarter one. So 15th of August becomes the due date of issuance of TCS certificates. Okay. How will the department come to know that whether you have issued the TDS or TCS certificates? Anyway, the amounts will be reflected in 26 years. Why should I do that? It is still a responsibility of the deductor to download and issue the TDS and TCS certificates. Otherwise, general penalty is applicable. And if you don't download, obviously system knows that you have not downloaded, and since you have not downloaded, you have not issued it. So till now they have not, any demands have not come, but anytime it can come. So it is best practices. Once the return is filed, at least download all the TDS certificates and keep it. Because whether you have sent it to the deductee or not, that the department cannot trace. But whether you have downloaded or not, that very well the department knows. So within 15 days, download the TDS or TCS certificates. Where do I download the TDS and TCS certificates? So for that, you have to download the TDS and TCS certificates from the Traces portal. The website is tdscpc.gov.in. So you have to go to the tdscpc.gov.in, wherein the deductor can download the TDS and TCS certificates. He can download the default reports. He can download the console files. Okay. What is the meaning of downloading of default reports and downloading of console files? I'll come later. But for example, this is how the portal is going to look like. Dashboard, statement of payments, defaults, communications, forms, and downloads. In the downloads, he'll again say requested downloads 15, form 16, form 16A, form 27D. These all are there. So you have to select Form 16, make a request there. Once a request is there, all the downloads will be available in the requested download sections. So whether in the, suppose here I have selected Form 16A, okay, whether you want to download a single or all. So you have to select that. Then it will ask for that year, certain basic details. So in that return, what you have filed, what was the acknowledgement number? Then one challan details and three directory details you have to punch in. Once the data is punched in, it will say the data, the TDS certificates, the request has been done. Once the request has been done, you have to go to requested downloads. Under the download section, you will have something called as requested download. Once you click there, it will say here, if you see here, the TDS Form 16 are available. The data is available. Select that and the data gets downloaded. Once the data is downloaded, you have to use a utilities. There are various utilities are there. So for default reports, I want in Excel, there is a different utility. For generation of Form 16s, there is a different utility. For generation of 16A, there is a different utility. For TCS certificates, there is a different utility. So what does a utility do? See, that it is in this way. If the TDS certificates has to be downloaded in 20 than the PDF file, the data which the PDF files will take is huge. So what they do is they get downloaded, the data is downloaded. Then this utility is going to take the data and generate the certificates. So this is what the utility will do. So we have to download the utility. So this is what is asking, select the file which we have downloaded from the traces portal. Give the input password if it is, and where do you want to save it. Okay. And if you want to attach a digital signature, attach and the files will be generated. Okay. This is how the TDS certificates can be generated. So only the TDS certificates has to be downloaded from the traces portal. Only then it has to be issued. Now, as I have said, now we have two portals. So one is eportal.incometax.gov.in. There is one more portal called as tdscpc.gov.in. What is the purpose of having this eportal.incometax.gov.in? Any challan payments has to be done only from this portal. Okay. Whereas downloading of TDS certificates, we are doing from the tdscpc.gov.in. Is it only downloading of TDS certificates or any other things? That also we'll discuss. But in both these portals, there are two accounts. One is a PAN login and another is a TAN login. So what is the use of a PAN login in the income tax portal? In the income tax portal, PAN login, what it does is, I can make payment of my self-assessment tax. I can make the payment of my advance tax. I can view my 26 AS in my PAN login, that is income tax file. I can file my ITRs on my PAN login. Whereas in the TAN login, what we are doing is the challan payments, okay, are done through the TAN login. The CSI files are being done through the TAN login. Traces portal, why is there a traces portal PAN login? Okay. In certain cases, suppose if there is a company, the 26 AS runs into some 500 pages. Okay. Can it download the 26 AS from their ePortal incometax.gov.in? No. You have to download it from the traces portal PAN login. Okay. There and again a file will be generated from the utility. You have to generate the 26 AS. Okay. Whereas TAN login, we have seen the TDS certificates were downloaded from the TAN login. Now we have seen there are some 4 cases which is for sale of property. This is on table here. Okay. This is a table under one section 194 IA, IB, 194 M and S, wherein TAN number is not required. So here the challan and the utility, the form number and the challan is one and the same. So the form number, it's 27 QB, becomes a challan come return form. Okay. There is no separate challan. Your challan is itself becomes a return form. Okay. For example, in the case if there is a sale of property has happened other than agricultural land for amount of 50 lakhs and above, the buyer, when he is making a deduction, he has deducted 1%. And he need not have a TAN number. He should not use that TAN number. Even if he's having that TAN number, he's not supposed to use it. He is supposed to log into his individual PAN number. Okay. There he has to select I'll show you the login. So he has to log in with his individual PAN number. And he has to go through e-paid taxes. In the e-paid taxes, he has to say new payment. Generally, this is where you say advanced tax, self-assessment tax. Apart from that, you will have here These 4 cases will be there. So TDS on sale of property, okay, TDS on rents, these 4 cases will be there. He should select one of those cases which is applicable, and then he should select the whether it is a resident buyer and then which bank, and say next. So basic details are given. Then here itself, it will ask you the entire details. Who is the seller? Who is the buyer? What is the nature of the property? All these details it is going to ask, and I think those details are not captured here. So all these details, suppose if I select sale of property, it will ask you what is the property details, what is the date of agreement, how much is the amount you are paying, are there any joint buyers, joint sellers are there, what is the date of payment, okay, who is the seller, his PAN number, who is the buyer, his PAN number, and then finally the amounts. Now here the thing is, suppose there are 2 sellers and 2 buyers. Okay. Now the buyer has paid 1 check to first seller and the second check to second seller. The second buyer has paid 1 check to first seller and the second check to second seller. How many returns will be filed? The totally 4 returns will be filed. You have to follow the checks, and based on the checks, you have to file these returns. Okay. And I'm telling you, the revising these returns, very limited data can be amended. Unlike, the funding 4Q, 26Q, where you can amend anything. Here, amendments is very limited. So be very cautious in filing these returns. Okay. So this is with regard to, again, you can have, again, here also you have to download the TDS certificates through, again, the PAN login. So in the traces login, I have told you there is one more PAN login and PAN login. So in the PAN login, you have to go through download 15B and 15C, and then once you have downloaded that, it will be available in the requested download. The rest of the procedure is same. Okay. So this is with regard to filing of TDS return. Then the next part is revision of TDS returns. I'll here give a brief overview of the overall portal. And if you feel it's very technical, just remember it. Okay. Now this is the TDS portal dashboard, traces portal dashboard. Once you have logged in with your TAN number, this is how it will be. Dashboard, statement of payments, defaults, communications, downloads. Okay. And in the entire portal, how much is the total demand outstanding will be reflecting here for all financial years. If you click there, it will show you a basic summary also, that how much amounts are there. Now, if you see the statement of payments, you will have various, again, data is there. Statement status, challan status for payments, view TDS or TCS credit, PAN verification, request for consoles files, validate lower deduction certificate, request for refunds, track refund request, declaration, or else I'll do one thing. I'll try to log in this page also. This is.
Ritesh bhai. Ritesh bhai. Ritesh sir.
HYD.
Ritesh.
Sir, is it audible, sir?
Just a minute, sir. I'm logging into the traces portal. Once the login happens, I will share the screen.
Sir, Hari Govind.
Sir, Hari Govind Prasad sir want to speak with us.
Ritesh bhai.
Or else I'll leave it, otherwise you will take. The thing is, if I take it, here only I. So basically here,
Ritesh sir.
then it says. Sorry, any of the questions are asking? Okay. So we have filed 26Q and even uploaded in the portal, and the same was e-verified and was submitted. And what happened is, after submission, we went to view forms and we are unable to get the request, which were not applicable as it is in the portal. There is one person who says they have uploaded and it says unable to get. Probably this return has been cancelled. Probably.
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible. Tell me, sir.
Ritesh sir.
Sir,
Yes.
Hari Govind want to speak.
Ritesh bhai.
Okay.
Harigovind Prasad
Any
sir,
question is there? You can put it in the chat box, sir. Huh? Hello. I'll continue with the screen. Or any questions are there? Put there. So if the return is cancelled, nothing doing, sir. I want to upload it once again. Probably this return might have been cancelled or it has been not been uploaded properly. Upload it once again. What is the procedure to apply for TDS refund? Okay, fair enough, sir. So here under statement of payments, if you see the fifth option is request for refund. Once you make a request for refund, there is a track refund request. So make a request for refund here. Then you have to follow up with the TDS department and get the refund done. Okay. So there is a procedure, but yes, there are so many conditions which are there. If you are able to satisfy those conditions, you can make the refund request here. So it is there in the traces portal. So now one by one, I'll tell you what is it. Statement of payment, statement status. Once you have filed the return, if you want to see the statement status, as some person has said, he has uploaded the return and he is not getting the details there. So what is the, whether it is uploaded, not uploaded, what is the status? He can see the statement status. Then there is challan status. Any challan, if it is made, what is the challan status? Whether it is overpaid or under consumed, he can see in the challan status. Challan status for statements. In one particular return, what is the challan status? He can see there. View TDS or TCS credit. Now, for example, the deductor has deducted the TDS and what is the procedure? Sir, you have to go through that process only. There, the step by steps you have to follow there. Okay, I have shown you the screen request for refund. I have to see why the reasons, all those things. You have to upload the data there. I have not done any refund on TDS thing. Most of the cases, what we have done is we have carried forward to the next year and set it off. So, but there is a procedure there, so you can do that. Then, so for example, the deductee calls and says, or he says that the amounts are not reflected in my 26AS. And this deductee is coming all the 4 quarters. Now, what should I do? Should I download all the console files, put it in Excel, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and then put a filter on the PAN number and take out the deductees? Is there a simpler way? Yes. Where is it? You can say view TDS or TCS credit. So in that view TDS or TCS credit, I will give the PAN number of the deductee. Which quarter? It will say in this quarter, this deductee has come so many times, this quarter. So I can take that data and give it to the deductee saying that this is showing in my traces portal. PAN verification. This is place where you can see verify a PAN number. Okay. Request for console files. This is what I was saying. Suppose when you want to revise a TDS return, you have to make a request for console files. So you can make a request for console file here. It will ask for the acknowledgement number of the TDS return, 1 challan details and 3 deductee details it will ask you, and then a request will be done. Once the request is done, the data will be available in the downloads section. You have to download the console file and import into the return preparation utility RPU as a revised returns. How to check there is a balance in the old challan status? You can see there, sir. Consumed, unconsumed, overconsumed. Those it will show there in the challan status. Okay. Then validate TDS certificates. Suppose a department has issued 197, 195 certificates. Those certificates can be validated here. In fact, those certificates, you can see the entire certificates also. You can download the certificates also in the download section. That facility also has been added now. Request for refund, as I have already said, there is a process. There are a lot of conditions are there once you click that, but you can still apply. Declaration for non-filing of TDS statements. Now, if you don't file the TDS returns in time, what is the penalty? Or let's not call it as a penalty. Let's call it as a fees. 200 rupees per day late filing fees is applicable under section 234F. Okay. Now, till this was in somewhere in 2012, this section was introduced wherein 200 rupees per day late filing fees was introduced. Before that, department used to say that mandatory you have to file a nil return also, with the data is there or not. Subsequently, once this section came in, they said now don't file the nil returns, okay? And only if data is there, you file the nil returns. Now, how should the department come to know that in this particular quarter I have not filed the returns, that data? So you can give a declaration for non-filing of statements, okay? So give a declaration for that this quarter I'm not filing for so and so reasons. No deductees are there, those file it. Because once you file a nil return and subsequently you are adding the challan, subsequently you are adding the deductees, 234E is not applicable because 234 is applicable from the first original return. So original return was filed within the due date. Subsequently, you can add deductees, you can add challans. There will not be any late filing fees applicable here. Okay. So that is declaration for non-filing of statements. Declaration for low deductions. Here also, suppose if certain cases low deduction has happened, you can do that. Request for old task challan corrections. Okay. Now here, suppose what happened is earlier, this is basically because of this only, you can think it is till 2015, NSDL was having the processing the TDS return. Subsequently, it was given to the traces portal. So now what has happened is earlier the challans, the section codes were given in the challan. So there were mismatches coming in the section codes as per challan and the deducted details. And those, and certain cases, the amounts were combined. So subsequently, to come out of this issue itself, the section codes were now started giving in the deducted details. But what should I do with the old challans? So you can split the challans, you can change the challan section codes and make a request here. 26A and 27BA is a case wherein TDS was not deducted, but the deductee has made the tax payments and filed the return. Now department comes to the deductor and says, but Baba, you are not deducted the TDS on this part, and now you are. So in this case, he can go through this process and say that in this case, the deductee has already filed the return, and hence you can remove this demand. There is a big process is there. Even the CS certification is also there in this process. Okay. So this is with regard to statement or payment. The second thing is the defaults. So the first is the default summary. If you click on the default summary, which quarter, it will give you a brief and crisp default summary will come to you. But if you want to know, suppose it will say total, short deduction is some 20,000. But this short deduction of 20,000 is pertaining to which deductee will not be given here. So for that, what you have to download is you have to download something called as a justification report. Okay. So that is the third option which says download for justification report. So if you have to download the justification, again, same thing. One request number, that the 15-digit acknowledgement number, one challan details, 3 deducted details will be given. Once you download that, the data will be available in the download section. Again, a utility will be there. From this utility, one you import, the data will come in an Excel sheet. Okay. So the difference between the default summary and justification report is default summary is basically a brief summary, whereas justification report is a detailed thing. Now, there is next option is request for correction, and the fourth one is track correction. Fifth is view statements, view saved statement, and the fourth one is corrections ready for submissions. What are these 4 options? These 4 options, if you want to revise your TDS returns online, you have to use these 4 options. Okay. What does it mean? Once after I have filed the TDS return, there are 2 options. You can revise the TDS return online. You can revise the TDS return offline. How offline? You have to download the console files, import it in the utility, and revise the return. Again, upload it to the TDS income tax portal, the FUE file. That is doing the revision offline. You can do the revision online also with using those 4 options. So request for correction is basically I'm making a request for revising the return. Once the data is available there, it will be saved in the track correction request. You have to make those changes there, and then it will go in the save statements, and finally you have to submit for corrections. Now, here in this online corrections and offline corrections, the difference is challan corrections has to be done only online only. Okay. Then second part is if you want to make a form details corrections. Form details is person responsible has changed. You want to change that. So form details corrections has to be done online only. Whereas deducted corrections can be done online as well as offline also. So, but if you are doing a deducted corrections online, you are supposed to have a digital signature, or if you are doing it offline, you can do without a digital signature. Now, for example, earlier I have filed a return with 10 deductees. Okay. Now, subsequently, I came to know that 5 more deductees has to be added, which I have included in one challan. So one more challan is added, which has 5 deductees. Now, how should I proceed? Earlier return is already filed. Now, the first case is I have to add this challan to the original deductee. How? I have to make a online correction, make a request for correction, and add this challan to the return. Once that challan is added, now I have an option. You can download the console file. Okay. So in the return preparation utility, this challan will come there because this challan correction has already done online. So you can add deductees in the return preparation utility, or you can add this challan online. At the same time, you can add the deductees also online also. That is also possible. So there is something called as online correction and there is something called as a offline correction. Challan corrections compulsorily you have to do online only. Okay. So further, these four options, that is request for corrections, track correction requests, view state statements, and corrections ready for submissions, are basically for making a online corrections. So this is how a default summary will look at. Okay. So very brief detail it will say how much is the short deduction is there, how much is the late payment, all it will say. But it will not give you the full list. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, how to make a corrections, request for corrections. I have first made a request. Then I go to track corrections. This data is available here. So this data, I can make the corrections online. I'll select that and then put a digital signature, validate it, proceed with transactions. Now here, once I say proceed with transactions, it is giving me four options. Personal information change, I can make a challan corrections, I can make PAN corrections because I have proceeded with the digital signature. Sir, sorry to interrupt. Kindly wrap as with sir. Once you have invited, just wait for 10 minutes. It is an important section. Doesn't matter. Okay, 5-10 minutes. If people want to log out, we are not stopping them. They can go here. If they want to sit, they can sit. Okay. Doesn't matter, sir. Let's not take it that seriously. Add challan to statements. So here, there is a challan correction I can do. I can make a personal information. PAN corrections I can do. And I can add a challan. Based on the requirement, you can do that. This is online. Whereas if there is no digital signature, only three options are there. What are that? Challan corrections you can do. And you can, if any late filing fees, anything is there that you can make the changes there, or you can make a addition to the challan. So basically you can add a challan or a existing challan is there. You want to make the correction. What sort of correction? Now, for example, a challan is there, which I have made a payment of 20,000 rupees, but I have put the entire amount in the TDS, but subsequently I came, okay, no, TDS is only in that 20,000, only 18,000. 2,000 I have to put it in the interest column, which I have not done, or 1,000 is particular, or 1,000 is interest and 1,000 is for late filing fees. So now if I want to make certain, in the breakup of the challan, I can make it in the challan corrections. Whereas if you want to add a challan, you can straight away add a challan. This is what the options are there. So late filing, interest, these four options are there. So in nutshell, basically, you can make online corrections. These all screenshots are basically for those purposes only. Okay. And personal information also, you can make the changes online. This data will be available here. Suppose here what I'm doing is I'm making a challan corrections. So how do I do? The total amount of the challan is 1083954 cannot be changed. But I can change the TDS surcharge, education says interest and levy and others. These amounts I can change. So that much of law. Okay. Here I can add a challan to the statements. So these are the options. PAN corrections can be done here. Okay. And the best thing is, whatever you are doing it, see, initially you will find it is difficult, but end of the day, all there are there in these four options only. Okay. In these four options, as the step by step, if you go, you'll come to know. Any issues are there, you have my phone number and email ID, which is there in the last screen. You can take that and connect to me. Okay. Requested downloads, as I've already told you. What is this requested download for? For revising the TDS item offline. So as I've told you, you have to make a console file request. That console file request will be available in the requested downloads. You have to download this request and open the utility. This time you will select the correction return and import the console file, and the data will come to the wherever you want to make the changes. You can make the changes. Suppose if you want to add deductees, add those deductees, because challan changes you cannot do it in the offline return. Only deductee changes you can do it in the offline return. And again, you have to, this time it will ask you three things. Challan CSI file, which we have already done there. Where do you want to save the file? We order console file. This is the additional thing which will ask you to browse it, select the console file and then validate. Then you can upload the file. How do we upload? Again, the same process. Okay. This we have already told you. Same way you have to upload the return. Okay. So I think with this, we have concluded the just before time. This is my mobile number and email ID. This data is there for you. Any doubts, you can connect with me. And in case if probably there are certain specific issues, because you can just post on WhatsApp. I'll resolve it, because I want some cases they ask whether government deductors is there. Let me be more clear, because see, TDS for one section is applicable once. So when we are seeing the applicability, better to see the act and then give a conclusion there. Because my forte is more on the technical part. Yes, I know the section, but I'm not very, there are certain people whom we call as a moving barrack. I'm not on those lines. But yes, I have a general overview of idea, and any sections are there, you can just post it to me. I'll go through them. Any specific section-wise issues are there, which is applicable to company, post me on WhatsApp. I'll reply to that. I'll be okay. So with this, we have come to the end of the session. Over to the organizers. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I now request participants to post any questions if we have in the chat, such that our speaker and session chairman will.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Over to Haribhai, chairman, sir.
ऐसा है, पूरे जितने भी IPL T20 वनडेज पूरा जो होता है, वो सबका जो मिश्रित बोल के होता है कि पूरे पुण्य नदियों का जो पानी एक जगह जमा होता है, पूरे जितने 7 समुद्रों का जो पानी जमा होता है, और उसका जो ज्ञान पाता है वो है रितेश मित्र.
अरे सर, selling data servers doesn't fall under TCS. I'll check it, sir. Because sale of scrap
सभी लोगों ने देखा होगा कि कितना 170 के करीब स्लाइड्स बनाए उन्होंने, और साथ के साथ जो चैट में आ रहे थे उसको भी आंसर करते चले हैं. ये इस तरह का नहीं है कि 1 सेकंड में या 1 घंटे में या 2 घंटे के सेशंस में ये हम पूरा आपको समुद्र गागर का जो सागर है वो गागर में दे सकते हैं. लेकिन फिर भी हम चाहेंगे कि अगर किसी के पास स्पेसिफिक कोई क्वेरीज है तो एक 10 मिनट का हम चाहेंगे कि अपने स्ट्रेट क्वेश्चंस पर अगर आप आना चाहते हैं तो अगर क्वेश्चंस पूछते हैं तो हम स्पॉट पे जितना क्लैरिफाई कर सकते करेंगे. नहीं तो आपको हमारा ईमेल आईडी पता है, उस पर भी आप मेल कर सकते हैं. और आपको लगता है कि गवर्नमेंट को कोई इश्यूज या टॉपिक्स को रिप्रेजेंट करना चाहिए जिसमें रिलैक्सेशन, रिलीफ, शॉर्ट डिडक्शंस का, या जो 31 मार्च का है, या पैन या लिंक का वगैरह का है, या जो भी है, तो चेंबर उसी के लिए है जो रिप्रेजेंट करने के लिए है. और चेंबर की बातें गवर्नमेंट कंसिडर करती है. तो चेंबर के पास में आपके जो प्रैक्टिकल डिफिकल्टीज हैं, अगर आप वो ऑनलाइन मेल के जरिए हमें शेयर करेंगे तो वी विल रिप्रेजेंट इट टू द गवर्नमेंट आल्सो. बट टुडे एज वी आर सिटिंग विद एन एक्सपर्ट हु इज fully capable to answer all your queries, we will be happy to take 3 to 4 questions. Please unmute yourself and ask the question. Ritesh bhai, 3-4 questions लेते हैं.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, participants can unmute.
Yes, Ritesh, this is Madhusudan Reddy. I'm audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Audible, sir.
Right. See, what one problem we are facing. See, we are deducting TDS, and they gave a PAN number to us.
Okay.
Later, when we are asked, when we filed TDS return, when we are asking them to why you are not filed, why you are not linked to Aadhaar, some people are linking Aadhaar with another PAN number of him only, and they are giving that PAN number to us.
Okay.
So they are having 2-3 PAN numbers like that. So of course they are saying, sir, one PAN number gave to
sir,
me. Sir,
what you do is,
so is it possible as to revise our TDS return by stating this new PAN number which is linked to Aadhaar?
Yes, sir, you can revise return. No problem, sir. See, I'll show you. See, basically on the, how should I know that the Aadhaar link is done or not? On the e-portal income tax, there is a PAN verification column is there. Okay. You can verify this. I'll just open the income tax site also.
Right. Here, 206, this recent amendments is there, sir. Actually, one is Aadhaar linking, and another was even though PAN is Aadhaar, if it is not operative, like that, suppose some returns were not filed, then it will be inoperative, na? like that also.
So basically, yes.
So these two things we have
Verify
to,
PAN status. You have to see this there. So you go to the verify PAN status. Okay.
that,
And
that
then
we
it will ask for
understood,
the
that
PAN.
we are aware, it's Sirji, that we are
Yes.
aware of it.
Yes,
The thing
Okay.
is here two things we have to
Hmm.
check it, sir. One is linking of Aadhaar, and second one is
Yes.
whether it is operative or not.
Correct.
So even though it is
So,
operative,
hmm.
even though it is linked to Aadhaar, operation of PAN also important, na?
Link to Aadhaar becomes operative, no, sir? Once suppose if I put
May not, sir, because suppose that person was linked to Aadhaar, but he has to file the returns for last, if it is TDS is above 50 like that. If he is not filed also, it is inoperative, na, sir.
okay. No, so what we have to do is we also say here. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to ask for this copy. So probably here, what does it say? 176 47. So PAN is active and details as per PAN number. So basically what you have to do is first thing is you have to see whether the PAN is active, and probably here itself, once it is active, that means it is linked to Aadhaar. With regard to the income tax returns filed, you have to check his status. If in case if he's saying that it is filed or not filed, I have to check whether where is the this active. Does it? I feel once it is active, first thing is it is already matched with Aadhaar. That is there. So whether it is the income tax returns are filed or not there with this, I think that we have to do it manually. Or is any
Sir, that is, there is a login for that. We can create it. For that,
okay.
suppose if it is inoperative also, that is wrong, na, sir. But linking of PAN Aadhaar is one step, and even though he is
Yes.
linked to PAN Aadhaar, then again we have to check the operative or not inoperative. That also, na. Otherwise, if it is even linked also, if it is inoperative, then higher rate will be applicable, na.
Yes.
That is specified person like that, it is there, na, sir.
Yes. So if it is inoperative, it will be yes. So in that case,
So
higher rate will be
linking
applicable,
also,
sir, both
linking
of the
is
rates.
not full-fledged. Even it is linked
Yes.
also, we have to check the inoperative or operative.
Inoperative also. So you have to see whether it is higher, whether his returns are being filed or not.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay.
Here, one more issue is there, sir. A person cannot have multiple PANs, right? Your issue is concerned with multiple PANs also. So you are supposed to surrender, go to the income tax department, surrender it, and whichever you wanted to continue and have a linkage with the other, rest also you have to surrender immediately. Otherwise, it is a violation of the law and will be penalized for holding multiple PANs.
Right, that we are aware of it, but our contract, our deduct is not doing that. That is what our problem. We are getting one PAN, and after that, if we ask something else, we are getting one more another PAN. That is what is the department is allowing them to take the more PAN numbers, and also department is asking us to why those people are having two numbers.
So there have been cases because we have started with several type of experiments, GRN number, like so on. Now today, why that Aadhaar is also getting linked up is just very basic is that reason that one PAN, one nation, one tax, right? So you cannot have multiple PANs. It is a violation of law.
There is one question, during, sir, we have made TCS remittance during Q3, but challan is not reflected in portal. What is the procedure to retrieve? Because payment is duly debited from bank side, and what is the remedy? So first thing is any challans if you are generating, it should happen only from the PAN login. Once you have done that and make the payment, that amount, that challans can be downloaded again in the PAN login only. So here, if it is not being downloaded, first thing you have to check with the banker, sir, that once if it is payment is done and the remittance is done, why the challans are not coming into the PAN login. So there has to be some issue with the banker only, because straight away those challan has to come in the challans of the PAN login. Otherwise, it will be an issue, sir. Make a complaint to the banker only, sir.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, any other questions, people can post in the chat box also.
So
So-
later also any questions are there, you can send me to your WhatsApp. I'll be, it will my
Sakamurthy
I'll
garu,
be obliged to.
any
Yes.
Hannolu garu? I hope Ritesh sir has answered and made a presentation in such a way, very lucidly, simple language, understandable with PowerPoint presentation and all the things which a person is supposed to do, right from 16, Form 16, Part A and Part B, 16A, which is a quarterly return, which has to be downloaded from traces. Traces we have to register. Filing is important because the other party who is the deductee has to get the credit for the same. And what are the various mistakes a person makes and where they can go for outside softwares or government provided softwares. What are the methods to download, rectify? All he has given in detail. And FAPSI has 20 more committees where if you are a member, you can utilize the services. If not, we have direct taxes and indirect taxes and several other committees for helping you for your business and other aspects. Here, we are always available. Mr. Ritesh Mittal is a managing committee member also, apart from myself and Sudhir. And we are always available here for servicing you on various issues on ESI, PF, taxation, direct, indirect, and economy, banking, and several all the experts committees. I hope that with this greatest applause of a show of hands as a clapping is required from all the participants, which is a booster and energy for a speaker like Ritesh Mittal, who is always available and our chairman is also available. I would be happy if he shares his thoughts on Ritesh Mittal presentation and batting IPL T20 and World Cup.
I think Ritesh has given us an entire walkthrough very cleanly and what you call stepwise. He has explained us in the portal also, the procedure also. I think we will all get benefit out of his session. So thank you, Ritesh, for taking your time and doing. And I would also thank Harikishan for chairing this and giving his insights.
But we also thank you, sir, for giving us the opportunity to chair and before. So it is all kudos to the chairman and the president, sir.
हरिप्रसाद जी,
With this,
हेलो हरिप्रसाद, मैं सांबमूर्ति बात कर रहा हूँ।
हाँ जी,
वो मेरे को अनम्यूट नहीं करने दे रहा था. It was not allowing me because host has stopped me from unmuting. So I could not unmute when you called me. So the host has accepted my request and now I am able to unmute. When you tell, I will also give 1-2 remarks.
please.
अभी सुधीर जी सर बोल रहे थे ना, उनका होने के बाद मैं बात.
हो गया सर, आप ही कहें.
Done. I am done, sir. Please go ahead.
Yes, Ritesh, as we know, always he is not a 2020 player. He is a five-day match player, but he completes in 2020 manner. वो पुराने जमाने में वीरेंद्र सहवाग के जैसा है उन्होंने 300 in one day. Why? Whenever I see his presentations, I worried because it is never below 100 slides.
Yes.
Always it will be more than 100 slides only. But he has got the capability. He will cover the subject exhaustively with no other these things. What you got is no other doubts. When you go through his PPT, it is a guide for everything. TDS, TCS, any doubt, you just refer that. So we are very thankful to Ritesh Mittal, and whenever his meeting is there, I will be the first person to join.
Thank you, sir.
And I will ensure that I listen from first to last so that I will learn 1-2 things from these things. Every time I will learn one more thing. This is my conclusion. Thank you.
Sir, I just wanted to tell you, he need not be a person who has to go through the subject. Even at the night, midnight, 12 o'clock, you wake up Ritesh and ask what is TDS, what is TCS, what is the thing. Immediately encyclopedia will come out.
Yes.
So he is a Google for the TDS and this, and for Patsy he is an asset also.
Correct.
It is a privilege that we are having in the hot summer, which is now cooled, just because that his session is there. So weather is also cooled down. So with these few words, Chairman sir, with your permission, can we say thanks to Ritesh Mansala, Chairman sir, and all the participants. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm Ramesh, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
So I have one doubt, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
One doubt. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you for your FTCCI session. And actually, I have filed Q3 return, Q3 TDS return, 26Q. What happened? The two persons are there. The PAN is inoperative. Actually, I don't know. I didn't check. After filing, we received a default in traces. I checked that there is an inoperative PAN for 2 members. After that, I filed correction also. Same thing. For this, what should I do?
Sir, PAN is inoperative already. Recently, circular has come,
No.
sir.
Actually, what happened? I informed also. I informed them Q2. This happened in Q2 return. I informed the two persons, the two vendors who was there. Informed. Please link your Aadhaar card to PAN. They're linked, and in the traces, the showing the PAN verification. I have seen in the PAN verification. In there, it is operative. It's showing the two PANs, the two vendors' PANs. After that, I filed Q3 also. Same thing happened. The Q2 is default came for PAN inoperative, and Q3 also same thing default received. For these, what should I do? I need to do correction, or I need to do anything for this for inoperative showing in this.
Sir, inoperative PAN, first thing you check, ask them to check the status. No, there are certain 4 details it will ask you.
Yes, I have checked. I have checked, and
what is it?
I informed them they are linked with Aadhaar card. Now it is now it is operative in Q3. When I'm filing Q3 return, then I checked that it is operative. After Q3 filing, we received again default against the two vendors. Same inoperative. I downloaded justification report also. It's showing PAN is inoperative. You need to deduct to 20%.
Yes, sir. So basically, sir, for this only CBDT, what happened is last year many of the deductors got notices for this purpose only.
Yes, sir.
Now, as a deductor, see, first of all, if you see a deductor is making a payment, he is helping the government by deducting certain amounts. Now he is made to file the TDS return also. That also he has done. He has issued TDS certificates. Now he is supposed to also check whether the PAN number is linked to Aadhaar card also. So there lot of notices were initially sent. That is the reason the CBDT circular dated 23rd of April 2014 states that transactions entered up to 31/3/2024 and in cases PAN became inoperative as a result of linking with Aadhaar on or before 31/5/2024, there shall be no liability on the deductor to deduct. So basically what was happening is the transactions are those. So at least now if you get it linked, okay. So probably initially what it was doing, the day when you are entering the data till that date. Now that date is extended. So ensure that all those demands which have them, ask them to update it before the 31st of May. Those demands will go away, sir. So then in that case, earlier demands with this circular, because this circular has recently come on April 23rd. So with this, so probably they'll make the changes in that traces portal and these demands has to go away, sir. But now subsequently before May, if they have updated, those old demands will go away, sir.
I don't need to pay.
We have to just wait.
No need to pay the default amount. So?
No, not required. Wait for some more time. These demands will go away, sir.
It will
automatically go. Yes.
Automatically close.
Once this, the circular is made.
Sir, excuse me in this regard.
One more,
sir, excuse me in this regard. Sir, in this regard, excuse me. Sir, the persons who are deduct is there now. They are not bothered about it. They are not cooperating with our persons to link the PAN and Aadhaar for 31st May it is there, na, sir, last date.
Yes, yes, yes.
They are not at all interested, but they are not bothered about it.
So what you have to do is, sir, you have to make certain additional purchases from him, or in that case, in the next payment, you deduct those amounts also, sir. Make the 20% and deduct those amounts here.
So
That's it.
more remedy.
Pay to-
ask
pay
him
to
that
pay
because-
TikTok.
Speaker sir, Speaker sir, there is one more remedy which has been offered by the TDS Commissioner from our Hyderabad, that these people who are facing such issues of getting linked PAN with Aadhaar and now operative, quarter 1, 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, anytime they can approach to Masatang, their TDS circle, meet the commissioner, and they have themselves offered to rectify such issues on one-to-one basis also and collectively. If they forward such issues to chambers, we can take up and they can also meet in person. But it will be advisable if they approach chambers and we will represent such issues. And if deductees are also not cooperating, it will come as a rescue to them instead of other aspects. So we once I was able to meet Meghna Chan and the subsequent who is the commissioner, he himself has came forward and offered these services from their end.
Fair enough, sir.
Sir,
Good to know that, sir.
This is sir,
Yes, sir.
nice session, sir. Is it possible to share the documents?
PPT, I have already shared with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Once again, thank you, Ritesh Mittal sir, for being a speaker for the session, and C. Hari Govind Prasad sir for being chair for the session. Thank you all the participants for your valuable time sparing in the session. Thank you once again.
Samamurthy garu, Hanmalu garu, and others eminent excellence experts. We thank you for your continuous support and participation in FTCCI activities. Sir. Thank you.